We're back, bitches. Almost agreement time. Vacation happened. It was cool. Now it's time to grind it out and get ready for this grand opening. And then I can retire again. Or something. So anyway, we're Almost Agreement. AlmostAgreement@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Voter Guide 23 will be available soon. I'm working with Scott Barker from the Compass and the Compass Points podcast to try to schedule some debates this year. Since Scott or myself are not the legal women voters, maybe some of the Republicans will show up. We'll see what happens. So we'll talk about that more, among other things. We're Almost Agreement. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Subscribe there. Share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star review. Those are the things that help people find it faster and easier and all those kind of things. So Voter Guide 23 is in the works after I get this grand opening thing out of the way. So we got a little bit of time. So anyway, and on interviews and stuff. So here we go, people. It's showtime. Let's do this thing. Ian.
Hey.
How you been?
Been all right.
I missed you, buddy. I really did.
Aww.
Happy birthday. Now it's late. It was early last time we recorded. It's late this time. So all listeners out there, Sam's birthday is between 2 weeks ago and today. I'm not telling you when.
Okay.
I was just, people might say happy birthday. I got, after the last episode, I got an email from a guy with a link to a 60 Minutes thing on Pentagon spending and price gouging from defense contractors and stuff like that. And it was,
how recent was it?
That's a good question. Let me pull let me open up my email box.
So I never looked for the full interview of it. I mentioned that saw a clip of like Jon Stewart talking to, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there was more to it, but you just had to pay to have access to it.
Yeah, that's how they do. They got.
I think this is on Apple.
Yeah, I got Apple. We can go.
So I always just catch it on like 5 minutes of YouTube.
That's an interesting one. The Ronda stuff, we'll talk about that here in a minute. It was a while ago. I texted it to you, too. I texted you the link, right? I'm pretty sure I did.
Nope.
You sure I didn't text you the link?
Nope.
No, I didn't. Shit, what did I do with that? Maybe you did it through Facebook on me or something like that. This one. Mr. Bodie reached out and sent me a link. It's from CBS News. Senators urge Pentagon to investigate ongoing whatever from May 26th. So it was right in line when we were talking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe a week before. It's probably one of the references made.
Dollars of munitions to Ukraine and growing tensions in the Taiwan Strait.
Okay, so we'll start there since we're running anyway. I'm not going to go on the Pentagon ridiculous spending thing, but did you hear Russia is moving tactical nuclear warheads into Belarus?
Yeah, they announced that a while ago.
Okay.
I think he announced again today that I guess they were finally
first,
going in.
It's the first time since Cuba, I guess, that Russia has taken missiles off of their personal territory and put it into friendly countries. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, not really.
I like the idea of the tactical nuclear warhead and the whole thing. Like the tactical nukes are, they're more specific and whatever. But then they're also bragging about how these tactical nukes are more destructive than either.
I mean, I can't think of too many targets that he would want to target that
he couldn't hit from home, that he has to hit from Belarus.
Well, no, that he's not. I mean, his whole goal, was to reinstall the former USSR. So, I mean, if he wants to, in the future, regain these lands, what good is it to you?
I mean,
irradiate.
I would think that in the strategic conversation, it's not that he's going to drop them on Ukraine. He's going to drop them on the NATO allies if the NATO allies continue to interfere.
No, yeah, I don't think he would go so far as that either.
I wouldn't think so.
I think it's just posturing, but
I mean, I hope so. Like, I want you to be right on this. I really, really do. I really don't. I really hope that he's not that crazy. I really hope.
I don't think he is. Like, I don't think Russia...
I hope that this is a chess match of wills, and it stays a chess match of wills, and there is no...
I mean, run down the crazy rabbit hole. I don't think Russia could stand up to all NATO forces.
No, absolutely not.
I'm assuming he knows this as well. I would like to think his intelligence officers are like, hey, we want to run right on the edge of breaking NATO treaty or whatever.
Right. We want to do everything but make it so that they're in it. But I mean, again, I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was a crazy little story on that. So We'll go back to local and start where I wanted, or where I think the first thing that I text you about it was, and there's two angles on this that I want to talk about, but the comptroller, your favorite office in government. There's a comptroller's office that is attached to.
It's never my favorite. It was just one person I kept trying to point out. You're like, somebody looking at this stuff. I'm like, yeah, there's a person that does this.
Well, with the comptroller had done it with the state utilities directors or something like that. It had, at the behest of many citizens, but at least rhetorically, with the assistance of Rhonda Lee, the county commissioner who is the commissioner of the district that HPUD is all in,
right?
Has the comptrollers looked into it, and it's okay, but it's not okay, is essentially what the report says. Like, the expenses make sense, the pricing makes sense on what they're doing. The biggest issue that the comptroller in the state investigation found is that, like, I think the average water utility has like 10 to 20% water loss. So when they're pumping water out, leaks in lines, stuff like that.
All right.
So it's getting pumped out of the station, but it's not hitting your water meter at your house where it's billable. So it's unbillable water loss. But HPUD's like near 50% of their water. So
Aren't they one of like the newer utilities? Shouldn't they?
They as an entity are, but they took over an old one.
Oh, gotcha.
And so that's like realistically, and this is the under state law and the utilities thing, and I think this is one of the weirdisms of utilities, I guess. But under state law and utilities, there is no subsidy. They do get some like property tax breaks and stuff like that when they own the property. As far as like
a substation or something,
right? Like if they put a substation in, like with KUB has, they get some rights as far as doing stuff where, like, if KUB is running a high power line, like across like a farm lot or whatever like that, the state can step in and force you, the farmer, to let them put a tower up or kind of deal. And so they get assistance from the state, but not directly monetarily for the most part. And so the rule is they have to charge enough to pay. They have to charge enough to pay their bills. And so Hallsdale-Powell is essentially in that window. They're charging enough to pay their bills. It's just their bills are fucking high as hell. And so, like, again, like the report showing that all that wastewater, and the concern is, that's unclear, at least as I read it, is the concern is that they've invested a bunch of money getting these pipes and lines up to date and better and more efficient, and are still wasting so much. And so, like, that's like, it's all that wastewater, it's all that lost water number that's the real issue in Hallsdale. And so, but at the end of the day, as a Hallsdale customer, if the comptroller says, hey, you got to do better about this, well, they have to invest money to do so, and then they have to recoup that investment from their customers. They, like, the state's not going to pitch in some money to help them do a fix. At least for us out here in wastewater, apparently, I didn't know this. I guess I think we were here as late 90s. Federal government stepped in and got on KUB about Knoxville general wastewater issues. Like, whenever we had a good rainstorm, we would have raw sewage coming up out of the drains in the streets and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't remember much about that.
And that was the thing here in Knoxville, and so the federal government said, you have to fix this now. And so they did, but everybody's wastewater bill tripled as soon as they started taking the loans out and getting this capital improvement done. So the federal government says you have to do it, but we're not helping pay for it. Which is, I mean, I don't know. It's an ism that I don't know the answer to.
I'd have thought with this new infrastructure bill that went out to states that some chunk of that could go to...
I know broadband was listed as one of the things, but I don't know if the totality of... Because again, it's like, I don't know that it, like, in the grand scheme of the term, infrastructure, yes, I would say that...
I mean, if they're including broadband, how is literally what you need to survive?
I mean, I don't know. That's one of those things. We talked about this when they were doing the broadband initiative stuff, that I'm not sure I agree with the premise of utilitizing.
That's a little bit of a
data.
Stretch. It's
and
more
so,
just
and maybe that's how they could do it, and that's how the city or county or federal government could invest in a pseudo utility, because it's. But even that, like, if you're any KUB customer, any electrical KUB customer is paying for the broadband installation in Knox County.
Right.
So if you get KUB electrical at your house or business, part of your rate is them offsetting the cost of running all this fiber and setting this fiber network up.
Yeah,
because it's going under the electrical subset. Because like Scott was telling me, this was months and months ago. Like it's so specific in state law that like KUB can't use water to pay for electrical.
Huh.
So like when the sewage thing happened and KUB had to upgrade all the sewer lines and stuff like that, it had to be on the water side of it had to be on the water subset of the thing. So they couldn't pass that fee on along to KUB electrical customers. It had to be water customers only.
That's what scares when you said that the other company had to make sure they were paying their fees or paying what they owe, basically.
Yeah.
Didn't know if some of their operational costs they were able to kind of filter into what they were charging.
Well, for Hallsdale, all they do is water, so all their customers are water customers. So
right. I didn't know if they could lump in like, oh, we had to buy 3 new trucks.
Yeah, I mean, if
it's going to cost us more money.
Well, I mean, yeah, because that's the business. Whatever the business is in the business is in the they're in the business of getting water to and from your house, and so anything that they do or spend money on to do said task is underneath the umbrella of what they do. So if they're buying new trucks or backhoes or whatever to dig trench lines or whatever, that's in their
salaries,
the whole thing. So, but then okay, so then part 2 of that is the Rhonda Lee part of the situation, because I think Rhonda Lee's a little bit fucking crazy. And I don't really like her as a commissioner, except for she ran saying she was going to get somebody to do some serious digging into what's going on with Hallsdale, and she did it.
Yeah.
So, like, of all of her, like, 10 items that she talked about all the time on the campaign trail, this is the only one I liked. And if I was in that district, that'd be the only thing that I would think about voting for her for. Where everything else, I'm like, ugh, you know. And so it's like, I was thinking, I was trying to step back and think about this in like the election politics part of it. It's like that's pretty awesome. She did what she said she was going to do. She went after it and did it, and I think it's a proper thing that she should be doing as a commissioner for that subsection of the county, because it's a big deal. We have Hallsdale at the other shop.
Right.
We have a sink and a toilet. That's it, and we're paying $120 to $200 a month in just water. That's fucking crazy.
A lot of pooping.
I mean, we do move a lot of people through there, so that toilet probably gets more use than a home toilet does. But I still don't think like it's not that much water. We're not going through that much water. We're just not. Like, I mean, the best example of how to describe that to me is we have one of those little 5-gallon water heaters or whatever, like the littlest water heater you can buy before you go down into those inline ones. Like, that's the water we have for our unit, because that's all we need. We have one sink, and that's the only hot water we make is the hand sink.
All right.
We have a mop sink too, and that has hot water too. But I mean, we use the mop sink a couple gallons a day.
All right.
But I mean, like legitimately, I would estimate. I don't know. What do you think? What's a standard toilet? Like a gallon, 2 gallons per flush?
Hard to say. I'm not sure.
All right, let's say 2 gallons to overestimate. I would say 50 flushes a day would be a high estimate for what happens in there. So that's 100 gallons, and then of all other water usage, maybe 10 a day.
I would say 3 to 4 probably for that one. For that toilet.
It's
definitely not a no flow.
No, it's not a low flow. You're sure of that. I don't know. A couple thousand gallons of water a month doesn't seem like it should be that much money.
I think it tells you on there, so you can look it up.
Yeah, I can pull the bill. I don't have a bill in front of me. But anyway, but off of the specifics of the utility thing, going to the Rhonda Lee part of it, like that's the problem with politics at large for me, because it's like you can find a thing about a candidate that you really like, but the totality of the candidate sucks. But if that's a top issue to you, I mean, it's normal. Like you have the single issue voters on abortion. I only vote for the president that's going to stop abortion or make sure abortion stays legal or whatever. And it's like that candidate could have 1,000 things that you hate that affect your life, but this one issue is the only one that matters to you. I don't know how to bridge that gap, I guess, is what I'm kind of complaining about. Like, how do we get to a place where candidates are more responsive in totality instead of having like 10 hard lines and this is what I'm going to do? Which again, kudos to Rhonda. Good job. Get after it, girl.
I mean, it's just campaign promises. I mean, it's what they're saying at the time to encourage you to vote for them come that time of year.
I mean, I agree. Their campaign promises, they don't necessarily actually have to follow up on them. They get away with I mean, and to be fair, that sometimes it's not they're lying about it and they're not trying to fill the promise that they did. They're just incapable of, for one reason or another. Like my biggest complaint when a county commissioner talks about schools, or a city councilor, for that matter, talks about schools, they can talk about it and promise they can do everything they want to do, and they could try their hardest to do it, but it doesn't mean it's not in their job title. They can't do anything about it.
Right. Like sometimes they're just duplicating the whatever party line is on certain topics.
Yeah. And so to me, I guess the question is, I understand what you mean about that's the way things are, but
I'm just saying that's the reason why they say it prior to elections. And it's not while they're still in office that they're like, hey, I'm gonna do these are my 10 points of what I'm going to do in my administration.
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying, though.
This is the shit they always say before they even get elected.
If you're a Powell, Halls, North Fountain City resident, and Rhonda Lee's running for commission again, and she says, hey, remember that remember your Hallsdale bill being ridiculous?
This is definitely could. That's what I remember when the next election cycle is for them.
She's on the 24, or that seat's on the 24 ballot in August.
So I guess there was that special election. I think I was reading today that the Justins both passed their primaries. I think one was unopposed.
I'm doubting that. I don't think they're going anywhere.
Both of them are in strong democratically held districts.
I mean, and they were popular candidates within their. I mean, they were elected there in the first place. I mean, and they were elected there on the issues that they got in trouble for making us think about. So, of course.
I was just saying, I forgot they had this weird, special election they were having to do.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wait, what are they getting news for? Like, that's an election. I'm like, it's not election time. And I was like, oh, that's right. They were having to do a special election.
And to be fair, I don't know what Memphis and Nashville's city cycle is either, because we're on a city cycle this year. City's odd years, county and state and federal are even years.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. Then.
So if Gloria had gotten the boot, it wouldn't have been a big deal for Chris Davis. You got to mention for Chris Davis to just add that special election to the ballot because there's already a ballot going on, already has all the workers in place and stuff like that. It makes it a little easier.
And think about that. That probably is what's going on.
I'm guessing that's what's going on there, but I don't know that. I don't know that. Notwithstanding. So anyway. I don't know, good on Rhonda Lee for sticking to it and getting after that one, because I think I agree that that's something that was worth looking into. But in totality, I don't like I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, she was the one who was floating about cutting school budgets to make room for more officer pay in this sheriff, the sheriff mayor showdown on raising the officer pay thing. And it's like, okay, I mean, there's not a lot of room where they could pull from school budgets. But it is an option technically. So if no idea is a bad idea, then that was an idea. But and it's like, well, but again, if I'm a Halls resident and she's on the ballot, and it's like she went after Hallsdale and that was helpful. It didn't really fix the bill, but at least we understand why, and at least we know the state's keeping an eye on them and they're not scamming us for it. They're just suck at what they do, and maybe this will force some changes to get them to be better at what they do. But she also wants to take money out of our schools, which I'm convinced that nobody fucking cares on schools. I don't think people care.
I think belief in public schooling has slowly been eroding.
But I don't even think it's that. I think so. Scott and Jesse, we recorded yesterday. Jesse's out of town, and so we were doing their podcast yesterday, and we were talking about the official breaking ground of the stadium, even though they've been working on it for months. The official groundbreaking ceremony was this week.
Right.
To which there's a big stink about, Randy said something along the lines of he had to keep it a secret when people asked him if he was bringing the baseball team down there, and that's why he was buying the property. And whether we're counting that as him lying to the public and or whatever about about his intent and when he bought the land or whatever. But so the official groundbreaking thing, and so Scott and Jesse kind of talked a little bit about how, in all their experience watching public meetings, going to public meetings, reporting on public meetings, reporting on different initiatives and projects and this, that, and the other, this stadium one realistically had probably some of the least actual resistance from the community.
As far as how much pushback there
as
really
far
was,
as people going to meeting. Waiter had the Nats group. I mean, it was an interesting thing to be, because you had Waiter and Constance and Tyler, who are as far apart politically as you could get in agreement on a thing. And in one way or the other, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of deal. We're kind of made this weird, strange bedfellows situation or whatever you want to call it, because of how opposed they were. But as a whole, there really wasn't much. And so, to me, the question is, how much do people actually know how this works and what it actually means, other than we have a baseball stadium? Like, do people actually know the costs involved, what the potential downside is for us as Knox County city residents if something were to go sideways? Like they did it, like it was sold very neatly that there wasn't a lot of risk. That's how it was sold in all the coverage that I saw on it, at least. Right. So that being the case, did people really understand what was happening to actually have an objection to it, or they're just going with what they're hearing about and are excited about the idea?
Some people probably even thought that there wasn't much they could do. They
sure.
Probably once they heard the story, they were like,
"Oh, okay,
they're building a stadium. Okay,
I can either pitch a fit about it or just okay,
right."
And so, to me, again, like to me, the first question is there a real swell of, and I think Jesse made a good point. It's that everybody, not everybody, but a bunch of different people who going into the vote on the stadium were elected saying that they were open to or affirmatively going to vote for approving the stadium project, and or these people have come around on the other side of the cycle and voted for the stadium project and still got elected again. And so in the voting portion of the popularity contest on the stadium, theoretically, yes, there is support for that. But what do we always complain about in voting in Knox County or city races?
Most people don't do it.
Exactly. So a majority of the minority of the totality of the people who are capable of voting voted for people who voted for the stadium. Okay. Jacobs was on board with the stadium. He won his race with 30,000 votes. So at least 30,000 people didn't hate Jacobs enough for voting for the stadium to vote for me. And it doesn't tell me anything. And Jesse and Scott made a good point. It's like we don't have anybody that does any real polling that isn't kind of super biased, which you'd think university might do some. You think the University of Tennessee might, for poli-sci classes, send out a bunch of kids to go do some polling on stuff like this? Because I'd be interested to know what people actually think or what they know about it.
I think polling's really kind of a hard thing to do.
I agree with that as well. And like you said, statistics, you can make statistics say whatever you say, which is a topic I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But I agree with that point. But I think there would be some value in it. It may not be an end all be all of real understanding. But I would argue that if it was just a 3-part question, you for stadium, are you against the stadium, or you don't know enough to make a decision, I think the majority would be the third option.
Yeah.
I don't know enough to make a decision. I don't know how this would actually affect me or my neighborhoods. The idea is cool, but I don't know what are the actual potential downsides. I would say that's the average person's take on it. So anyway, I think that's a problem in the system that needs to be talked about more too, I guess is what I'm getting at. I think that's something I'm curious to see if there's any swell of people that we could figure out a way to make it straightforward enough that they can give them a couple minutes of time and understand what's going on and get into it and actually go after it. Because again, I the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense. Philosophically, I don't agree. I don't like the idea of tax dollars being spent on private business. I think that's lame. But in the grand scheme of the world that we live in, kind of shit, I don't think it's a huge risk for the city, county collectively, and I think it has huge potential upsides, and the catastrophic downside is I think it has very big upside that is very possible versus having a very low downside, but being much less possible. I think it's very unlikely that the team's going to bust and run away. I think that is significantly more unlikely than it going really well. And then so the reality is it'll be somewhere in the middle.
I don't know how the team has done over the past 5-10 years or whatever.
I mean, but they're a Cubs affiliate, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, Cubs are one of those teams. It's I mean, Cubs and Red Sox of old, at least, they're just terrible forever, but it's just one of those teams that everybody loves. It's like the Cowboys for people that didn't have a home team. Everybody's a Cowboys fan that didn't have a home team for whatever reason. It makes no sense, but that's just kind of how it shakes out.
Yeah, but I don't know how many people actually know that we're a Cubs affiliate. I think they just know we've got a local minor league baseball team.
I think people know. I think the majority of people know.
I doubt it.
Okay. I mean, they wear Cubs uniforms with different lettering.
White with stripes?
White with blue stripes, and blue hat with a red letter logo and a bear inside, for that matter. Like the full Cubs logo is almost identical. It's a little bear cub, which thematically fits with East Tennessee.
Right.
Probably more than Chicago, for that matter.
And like a little S with a bear?
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I'll disagree. We'll agree to disagree on that one. I would argue that most people that go to games that are adults that have any sort of baseball knowledge.
Right.
No.
I'm talking about people that don't go to like the general populace. I'm not talking about people that go to.
Oh, okay. I get what you're
yes,
saying.
they're fans. I assume are probably going to know that they are a Cubs affiliate.
I would say
the general populace of Knox County.
But I would say when they're here in town, there'll be people that go to games that don't give a shit, particularly about baseball. Just like it's a fun thing to do on a Friday night. Let's go to the baseball game, have a couple beers, yell and scream. I think that it's more likely that's going to happen in town than
I don't
it would
give a
be.
Shit about baseball. I want to go to a baseball game.
You take you go on a date with somebody or something like that, or a couple of your boys want to go, but you don't really care about baseball, but it's something fun to do, and you're not really into it.
You're adding more little caveats into that.
I would say it is significantly more likely that people who don't care about baseball will go to Smokies games in town than they would go all the way up to Sevierville to do the same. Like people just hanging out downtown and there's a game tonight. I mean, I know that they're a Cubs affiliate, but I'd do it if me and you were hanging out at Barley's or at the new store just up on Central or whatever, and it's a game night and hey, so we want to go down and see what's going on with the game? Sure, why not? Fuck it. What else are we doing? I can see myself doing that. That's all I'm saying.
How much are tickets typically?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Maybe I'm just one of those people that's just...
I'm cheap as shit, too. You're preaching the car on that. And I mean, what they cost at the Sevierville one versus what they're going to cost downtown may change.
That's right.
2023 schedule.
They got to recoup all their money, so...
Yeah, I want 2 seats together. See what we got here. I don't even know what game I picked. I just grabbed the first game available.
You picked division rivals.
So, $20 a seat.
That's not bad.
Section 105. The good seats, section 109, right behind home plate. That's as good as it gets. Another $20 a seat. No chair, sitting in the grass. Bring your picnic blanket or $30 a ticket.
Wait, what?
That's what
I got to bring my own chair, and you're going to charge me more?
If I remember correctly,
but you might get a free baseball.
This is just grass, like it's just a grassy hill.
Yeah.
102. I'm not quite sure what the what differentiates the price. There you go. Oh, these are aftermarket. At least some of these are aftermarket tickets.
Resale.
Yeah, season ticket holders selling what they got. Huh. But anyway, the most expensive ticket is $70, according to that. Or at least for whatever game we just randomly fell upon.
Right.
But yeah, for $20, and then just $15 a beer or whatever. Let's go have a couple beers, watch some baseball, scream at some kids. I'd be down for that. That's all I'm saying.
Let's see. I saw something crazy. I guess the Oakland A's are talking about.
It's weird. I haven't caught the whole story.
But there was a bunch of people that set up. It was like this reverse boycott. It was like 20,000 people or so that showed up to convince them to not move. I believe.
Well, they're demanding it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of really odd. I'm like, wait, what is this? It's like, I guess they want the team to stay there. I don't know. I think there's already been talk of whether or not Vegas is going to approve the team moving and then the building of the stadium, because I guess they still have to approve all that jazz.
Well, I guess the current ownership wants to move it to Vegas, And so everybody's showing up demanding they sell the team to somebody who'll keep them in Oakland.
Gotcha.
Not sell the team to, like, I think that's my guess. I've not read a story on it. I've seen some headlines.
It seemed like it was people that wanted them to stay there. I don't know what exactly they were demanding.
Right. But the reverse boycott, and they're all carrying signs and stuff that say sell, or hashtag sell the team, or sell the A's, or something like that. But yeah, that's what it seems to me, is that the current owner wants to keep the team and move them to Vegas. And apparently there's somebody who's made an offer to buy them and stay in Oakland. And so the fans are trying to, which I don't understand the reverse boycott method, but I don't know. Let's get people talking.
I guess they were trying to show that there is a fan base that would come.
Yeah,
it's the only thing I can figure of why you would show up with that many people, is try to be like, hey, because apparently before it was like one of the least visited, or at least maybe the season so far, it was one of the least visited or least average attendance.
Yeah, they haven't been good for a long time. I was an A's fan when I was a kid. I loved the Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire, Ricky Henderson, the king of stolen bases. Son of a bitch was fast.
Yeah.
I found my starter jacket. I have an old school starter jacket of the A's.
I was trying to think, what's it, Dennis Eckersley?
Yep. Big lanky motherfucker.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to get here, but I just opened my Facebook feed, and Mayor Jacobs has posted a brilliantly precise quote: "Woke equals broke," which is
what
I don't know. Our friend Noah went after him.
Explain, please.
I mean, it's basically saying if you like companies that go woke go out of business, they don't make money off of it, which I agree with Noah on. That's absolutely false. But the reality of it is, I find it so disgustingly disingenuous on how companies just co-op the movement to sell their bullshit. And it works. Like, Mary Jacobs' statement...
it works to an extent.
Because
eventually, that same community they're trying to bring into the fold finds they're being disingenuous about it. And they're just as quick to turn their back on them.
Maybe. I don't know. Because, I mean, I think Mayor Jacobs' statements, I guess part of it is we're assuming his context because he doesn't give its context. But to me, his statement is in the assumption of you're out there selling yourself to whatever to make a buck, and it ain't going to work, which that seems to be false. For the most part, other than Bud Light, nobody has really gotten destroyed by it. Target's had some problems recently, apparently.
Right, but some of that was just reaction to...
I'm just saying, Target's had some problems.
Reactions.
Bud Light had their thing. But for the most part, it doesn't seem to be super damaging for companies to kind of lean into some of the woke, air quotes, stuff for marketing's sake. Now, to me, Mary Jacobs' statement should be correct because of how disingenuous the leaning into woke is. It's not that the companies are going woke or being inclusive or any of that shit, is they're using it as a marketing tool.
But that's a presumption that most or all are doing that, and I don't think that's true either.
I would say more than 50%. To quote pull an AC quote out of the air, I would say 51+% are it's strictly a marketing move. That would be my assumption. I don't know that for a fact,
right.
But that would be my guess. Is that marketing agencies, and marketing teams inside big companies see that it's worked for other people, and they emulate the idea to work for them. I would say that's the average. I would say there are probably 30% who really give a shit about some of the issues that we're considering woke right now. But I would assume the numbers are similar to what the actual population thinks about it. Most people just don't fucking care.
I still like watching the debates on like Congress and Senate floor of like, can you please explain like woke to me? You keep like throwing woke around. Can you explain woke? What you mean by woke? Because you keep saying it all the time, but what is woke to you?
Well, how about what is woke to you? Why don't you answer the question, and I'll give you my answer after.
I think it's a very vague, stupid term. That I see no.
I think it's an umbrella term. It
started as it just being like awaken, basically. I forget like the original term. It was something that was used like 100 or 200 years ago.
You have woken up to you've seen the world for what it actually is, and you're changing your ways to fix it. But I think there is some stuff that I think like definitionally would fall into wokeness for me. I think some of the I would think like when we were talking about trans kid stuff, I think those activist people who are willing to pressure their children or pressure somebody else to do something for the sake of inclusivity or whatever it is. When the pressure part starts, I think I would call that woke. When people are trying to get other people to do stuff because they feel like it's the right thing to do, and it's like, I don't agree with you, but you can think that, but you can't tell me to think that.
What kind of pressure are you talking about that was applied?
I mean, I would like when we were talking about trans stuff back in the day, where it was, I wouldn't go so far to say it's the majority, but I would say there are a good number of people whom, in their own activism, encourage or are maybe less critical about their kids transitioning than what's necessary because they feel so strongly about the issue. Like they want their kids to be trans, so they're going to push them to be trans.
What?
I would say that's a real thing.
No.
Okay.
Okay. I would say it's a thing, but I think
it's the same people. It's why I run the baseball analogy, the baseball parenting analogy. They want their kids to be baseball players because they weren't very good ones.
All right.
And they pressure their kids into their sport because they want to relive their glory days. I would say it's the same type of parent in a different issue than baseball or sport.
And how? Never mind.
Okay. Never mind then. Anyway, assuming Mary Jacobs' context is what I think it is, I think it's a stupid thing to say because it's factually untrue statistically for businesses who go after it.
No, but he gets to jump on the anti-woke train.
Well, and 922 people at least emoted to it. 827 likes, 131 loves, 41 laughs, which I don't know what laughs means. 2 hugging hearts. 1 oh my goodness, 1 angry face, and 1 sad face. So at least about 1,000 people on Facebook may or may not be in Knoxville because it's also Kane.
Right.
So a good chunk of those people might be Kane fans. But at least a 900 or so people seem to agree. Except for Noah, obviously. Noah doesn't agree.
That's cool.
And I don't. And what bothers me about it is if Mayor Jacobs is the libertarian he pretends to be, I don't know why he's fucking opening his mouth about it. That is not to me. That is not a libertarian ideal at all.
He can't get elected mayor as a libertarian.
He might have. He could have tried.
He could have tried.
He wouldn't have. You're right. And that's its own problem. Here, what is it? Something West. He's running for the Green, going in the Green Party.
No.
God, what is his name? It's gonna drive me nuts. Something Cornell West.
Possibly. Oh.
I believe that's his name. Cornell West he was going to run in some sort of something People's Party, and they don't have it. They're not a big enough party that they don't have ballot access in a bunch of states and stuff like that. So he shifted into the Green Party. That's a problem for Biden, realistically.
Doubt it.
Yeah, it's a problem for Biden.
Okay.
I mean, Cornell West is a name. Like, he's been around.
Yeah, I think he's a professor.
Yeah.
Name sounds familiar.
It's doctor. I think it's doctor. I think it's a doctor, PhD.
Yeah, I think he's the guy, professor that got, the cops thought he was like breaking into his own house or something.
No, that's not Cornell West. That was the guy that does the Ancestry show on PBS.
Okay.
I think. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Now that I said it out loud, I'm doubting myself. Might be right. He was breaking into his own house. I remember that story. I thought that was the dude from the Ancestry show on PBS, which I don't think is Cornell West.
Cornell West the guy like has like a sash around his neck?
That guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought the name sounded familiar.
I mean,
yeah, a lot of it, he's almost got like a.
He needs some braces. Just saying.
I guess I just hadn't seen him smile as much. He's always got like a neckerchief on. Henry Louis Gates. That's who I thought it might have been.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about too.
Yeah.
What an interesting combination of people.
Yeah, but I think it was Henry Louis Gates that got.
Yeah. The Ancestry guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's running for president on the Green Party ticket. I believe that he will have a He will pull a number. And with as close as the last Biden-Trump election was, I think it is a significant... Any number is a significant number, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I don't think he'll hurt Biden more than Kanye hurt Trump. Like, Kanye's a big fucking name.
But Kanye didn't even get on like half the ballots, and especially in the 3 states that mattered. I don't think Kanye was on the Ohio ballot. I don't think he was on the Wisconsin ballot.
Yeah.
Cornel West will be on the ballot. Green Party's got their shit together enough to...
they're still a really small third party.
They are, but they got their shit together enough that they have ballot access in most states. Libertarian Party has ballot access in most states.
There's a lot of parties that have ballot access in states.
Well, how many people do you remember seeing on the last presidential ballot? 5?
At least 10.
I don't remember that many. I have to go back in time. All right, so there's another one on that we talked. I hinted that we're going to come back to see some sort of pay thing. Statistics thing, yeah. So this little chart came out. It's a 2-column chart. Left column is country. The right column is ratio of pay for CEO versus average worker. Right, and so it goes down here. The smallest gap would be Japan at 11-1, Germany 12-1, France 15-1, Italy 20-1, Canada 20-1, South Africa 21, Mexico 47-1, Venezuela 50-1, and the U.S. 475-1. I got to thinking about that after seeing that, because you know how I do stupid shit on Facebook and go down rabbit holes on my own. I got to thinking about that, and I tried to go about it the nice way first, and I commented to the person whom posted it and said, "Hey, do you have the source for this graphic?" Don't get me wrong, I believe the Waltons and the Bezoses and the Jamie Dimons and the like probably surpassed that 475-1.
Who's Jamie Dimon?
J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sorry.
He probably surpassed that 475-1 stat, but I'd say that most CEOs make way less. I'm just curious, and by no means disagreeing with that pay disparity is an issue, although I don't know if I really agree with that or not, but just to try to put my nice hat on and start a conversation.
Right. I appreciate you trying to go the diplomatic route on that.
All right, and so they didn't reply quickly enough, and so I started doing some digging, right?
Yeah.
So I went on the interwebs, and I Googled CEO pay to average worker. And a couple of different sites that gave a close number, it ranged a little bit, plus or minus like 50. So like, 400 to 500-1 was the U.S. average. And so I was reading through a couple of these articles, and for the most part, it seemed that they used 300 to 400 of the top publicly traded companies for their statistic.
Yeah.
Well, that got me thinking a little bit more about it, and so I go, okay, how many companies in the U.S. are publicly traded? So just the 2 big guys, the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, combined for about, 6,000 companies. So right now we're at...
That's including all their like conglomerates, basically.
I mean, just publicly traded companies.
Right, but I mean, like Kraft as a publicly traded company owns probably over 100 different sub-brands.
Well, owning a brand is not necessarily a company. Like Oreo, Nabisco is a company.
Right.
Oreo is a brand. Now, I think Kraft is a Nabisco product, or Nabisco is a Kraft product, or vice versa. But I don't know that I don't know how their corporate structure is set up.
I mean, like Kraft owns like other companies.
Well, okay, good example. Yum Brands, easy one. Yum Brands owns Pepsi, Frito-Lay,
right.
Taco Bell, KFC.
Right.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Yum Brands is the only publicly traded one of the set.
Yes.
So Taco Bell, even though it's a separate company, for the listing that we're looking at, is only one of the 6,000 or so that are publicly traded. Because Taco Bell is not publicly traded. It's solely owned by Yum Brands. So anyway, I'm digging down through, looking at numbers, and I look to say, well, what percentage of U.S. companies are publicly traded? Less than 1%. Okay, so if 6,000 is the number and that's 1%, add 2 zeros, that'd be 600,000 companies, give or take, that operate in the United States. We're basing a stat that makes anybody who runs a company look like a greedy asshole on 300 to 400 of 600,000 companies. And admittedly, the 300 or 400 biggest.
What did they state? Publicly traded, or you were looking at the publicly traded?
No, they said the two articles I looked at said the top 300 to 400 publicly traded companies is where they base this number. Because I agree, I think Bezos probably makes 1,000 to 1, and it's also based on their core competency. So, and again, what's the core business of Amazon? Like, what's the core employee who works for Amazon do? What's the definition of core employee? Like, if you're Ford Motor Company and your core employee is your factory worker, that's going to be a bigger gap than if you're SpaceX and your core employee is a rocket scientist. I would think that would make a significant difference in the way that ratio works out. You know, so like if 11 to 1 in Japan is Toyota, but in Japan is where all the design engineers and all that kind of stuff are, and so the majority of Toyota employees in Japan are the white collar workers, not the blue collar workers. It makes a significant statistical difference in what we're talking about. Because as I'm digging through this and all the things other people search for, it's like, what's the average CEO pay in the United States? It's like $1.02 million. Do the math backwards. What's 1/475th of $1 million?
47,000.
I mean, do 500. What's 1/500th?
Just give me the answer.
I don't know the answer. It just came to me while I was talking about it as an example. Let me get my calculator out.
Don't ask me to do math in my head.
All right, let me get my calculator out real quick because I'm doing my math in my head. So 1/500th is 0.002 times $1 million. It's $2,000. There ain't no company on the planet that their core employee is making $2,000 a year. Maybe, I'm sorry, not on the planet, in the United States. So you get what I'm saying? Like I apologize to whomever posted this, and I didn't pick a fight with them on Facebook on it, but it got me thinking about it. I don't know what the Japan-Germany comparison is. I don't know any of that, but I know that 475 to 1 in the United States is a lie. Are there some? Abso-fucking-lutely.
If you're publicly traded, do you have to?
I think they use those because because you're publicly traded, certain documentation and numbers have to be made public.
That's what I was about
where
to say, yeah.
A private company, they don't have to tell, New York Times comes to me and says, hey, how much are your sales this year? None of your fucking business.
Right.
I can say that, but as a public company, I have to put that out. I don't have to tell New York Times per se, but I have to put out reports to my shareholders,
right,
which therefore makes it public information.
Right.
So anyway, my point is this 475 number is bullshit. There's no fucking way. It's not possible. And I guess maybe we could get into a fun definitional what the fuck's a CEO versus a business owner kind of thing. And maybe that's part of my problem why I'm not following this number very well. But we've touched on it before in episodes. Like the hate on capitalism is one thing, but the hate on business owners and people who run and manage businesses, yes, there are some absolutely in this country. Bill Gates, Bezos, and actually I don't know about Bezos. I have a whole separate sub-story on Bezos, but Bill Gates, Tim Cook, Elon Musk, if you wanna, Jamie Dimon, obviously, those guys make ungodly sums. And again, why I don't know if I put Musk in as much for not doing much anymore. I mean, hell, Bezos isn't even the CEO of the company anymore. He quit. I don't know what his job title is, but he's still getting paid a lot of money. But it's a problem when I guess that's the problem to me is that there's so much raging against capitalism and big business and all this kind of shit. And I have problems with big business in and of its own right, but they're based on things like this. People getting bent out of shape about this disparity between owner and worker is too much. Yes, for the top 350 companies in the nation, yeah, I agree. But that's 350 out of at least 600,000 companies in this country. That's not a good stat. I mean, if you want to do our numbers, ours is 3 to 1, 4 to 1, somewhere in there. And that's not even really true. It's 4 to 1 as ownership, not as an individual owner, because there's two of us. It's not by design by us. It's just where we're at. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the topic?
Did they ever get back to you on where the information came from?
No, they said over the last few years, 3 to 5, I've seen the 400% plus number many times, which is I started to pick. Well, I did pick a fight on that one. Even if the average for a large number of CEOs is 300% range, that is so wrong and unfair. So technically, what she's saying is a CEO making 3 times what their general employee makes is too much. Which, that in and of itself, I disagree with. What she's meaning to say is 300 times as much, not 300%, because 300% would be only 3 times as much.
Right.
But I don't know if that's wrong, because I think Bezos is a good example.
Well, I don't know if all the publicly traded companies, if you actually added up how many employees those top whatever companies, how that would compare to, like you were saying, the other 6,000, 5,500.
Well, I'm saying, even that. So, Jamie Dimon, which is not a very good example, because Jamie Dimon probably doesn't fit the format either, because he's the CEO of a giant bank, but all these bankers make a fuck ton of money that work for him.
Right.
So he's actually probably a smaller ratio, where a Sam Walton, on the other hand, his average employee is down at the bottom of the wage.
Right. Again, like you were saying,
anyway.
That question of an average employee.
Right.
Are you cutting off at a certain corporate structure and saying everyone below this is considered an average worker?
I don't know.
Or are you doing the median of average pay
right.
for your average worker?
So again, I'm not trying to say that the comparison from U.S. to Mexico is inaccurate, because it could be. I don't know. But to me, the United States number is false. It's not true. It may be true for some companies, but it's not true on the whole. Because one of the times I had Matt in here,
that may just be straight up going off of, like you were saying, it's all just publicly traded companies that they can get information for. You may see it as a low hanging fruit, but that's one of the only ways to get true numbers, instead of just calling them up and be like, hey,
but they're not true. But they're true numbers for a very small set of of at least the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy, the majority of companies, obviously 99+% of U.S. companies are private. So it's a very small subset of the economy.
Right. The amount of companies are private, but as far as, their financial input may or may not be.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Insignificant.
I'm sure there are some companies that are fully private that are huge. I know there are. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. Like the ones that keep popping in my head is Amazon, Tesla, and Twitter, and Facebook, and public. But part of the reason the CEOs make so much fucking money is because they go public. Because they go public, and apparently Zuckerberg has a $1 a year salary. How does that go into the equation? He gets all his pay in stock options and the fun little loan game that owners do.
Right. Have you heard of kiting?
Maybe. Tell me about it.
Apparently it's a banking thing that was brought to my, where you have 2 accounts, but you keep writing checks from one account to then feed the other account. Trying to, I'm not sure if you can do it nowadays because check processing is a lot faster. But I guess maybe in 20 years ago or so.
Oh yeah, you write a check that you don't have the money for,
right? Knowing that it's going to take a couple weeks to clear. Yeah, but you do this, with 2 different accounts, and you're kind of playing both banks off of each other.
Yeah, I know there's a scam that functions off of that.
I guess it's called kiting.
Yeah, I there's a couple times where I've been attempted to be scammed on a scam that works with that. Many moons ago, I was selling something on Facebook. There's something big too. It wasn't something you could just it's not something I was willing to ship. And dude makes an offer, say sold. He's like, you got PayPal or whatever, or an address I can send a check to. Okay, sends a check, shows up, looks good, looks like a check. It's like Fifth Third Bank or something like that. But the check's for $5,000. The thing I was selling was $200,
right? And
the checks are $5,200. And the day before the check gets there, I get an email from him or something. He's like, "Hey man, my accountant screwed up. They sent you a check for the wrong amount. But my dude's going to be there to pick up the thing. Can you just give him? Can you write him a check for the overage?
Right.
And we'll be all square." And I was like, "Nah." So I went in the bank and talked to him about it. Which there's some fucking bullshit about that. But I went in the bank and talked to him about it. They're like, "Yeah, this is a scam. I can tell." It said something about like Fifth Third Bank. Their routing number starts with 123,
right.
and this one started with 311. And he's like, "Well, if you deposit this check, we're closing your account." It's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, now that you know that, now that we know that you know this is a scam, if you deposit this check, you can no longer bank with us." And I was like,
"It's understandable."
I was like, "So, but if I didn't know," he's like, "We might close your account." Like, so if I just took this check, put it in my account before having talked to you, and this scam goes down.
I don't think they would do it with you unwittingly doing it.
And he said they might. That was his answer when I asked him.
Right. They're going to err on the side of, like,
anyway,
you better not do this.
Right, and what he said they do is that which I don't understand why the banks would let them do this, but what they do is they cancel the check after you cash it, which means that check didn't actually exist, and they pull the cash back out of your account. It's not even that it was a bad fake check or anything. It was that they cancel the check after you deposit it, and then you're on the hook for that money.
Yeah.
Because you paid them that check. It's like, well, can I cancel my check that I wrote them in return? No. Well, how do they do it if I can't do it? It's like, well, they're doing it because they're doing it with a false account and all this, that, and the other. It's like, that's fucking bullshittery. You're not really protecting me here. Like, I'm the customer. Why are you taking care of the scammer instead of the customer?
How are they taking care of them?
Because when the scammer cancels the check, they give that person their money back and take it out of my account. And since I gave them a real check that works, the bank allows that check to go through. Why wouldn't you let me get my money back from that, wherever that check went?
As I said, it wasn't a real bank account. They had nothing to recoup it from. Whether or not they have like fraud insurance, I don't know.
Well, they could, but they didn't give me the $5,000 that I wrote the check to them for. So if I cancel that check,
if you cashed it, you got the money, and then they just took it back out of your account.
Okay, but I'm saying,
so you got the money.
So okay, if you're the scammer and you give me the $5,200 check, right?
Right.
And I put that check in my account, and then I write you the $5,000 check back to make up the difference. And then you do whatever it is, and that $5,200 disappears from my account. Why can't I say, give me my $5,000 back that I gave you? Why won't the bank do that for me? Because then the only thing that gets lost is $200.
I don't know if they just go to like a check cashing place, if that's how they get their money. Like I said, I'm assuming it's somewhere in that. There's not a way for that bank to then recoup it.
I don't know. I don't.
You sounded like you knew.
I just feel like it's one of those that me being the customer of the bank should be the one that they're trying to protect, not making sure that the scammer gets what they get out of it. But anyway, back to the point. I'm very fascinated by this conversation. I'm very fascinated by the anti-capitalists that I see running around all the time, and that use statistics like this to pad their argument. I think there's problems with capitalism. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, I've seen many numbers that over just the past like 50 years that the average rate of CEO pay has dramatically increased.
But again, what's it based on?
Then it was, I think, at that time it was like major corporations. I mean, going back to before we even did the antitrust lawsuits, like the Carnegies and shit, they weren't getting this kind of CEO pay.
I don't know.
I know.
Were they public? Where were they getting their information?
Sure.
Because again, I would argue that it's the same thing, and it may be true that the difference between 20 years ago and today is significantly more in the publicly traded companies that we can see the numbers on.
So I'm assuming that it is. Like I said, when I mentioned Carnegies, these are major corporations. I'm not talking about small mom and pop shops. And
I'm not either. You could
CEO pay.
I mean, you could be multi-million-dollar companies and be private. I mean, I don't know if the Carnegies and Standard Oil and all that were private or public companies. I don't know where they sat on that.
I'm like 98% sure they were publicly traded.
Okay. And so
I'm sure they were part of the stock market.
I'm not disagreeing.
One of those people probably bought the damn stock.
I'm not disagreeing that the premise that the ratio has gone up over time. I'm not disagreeing that that's not a reality. But again, if the statistic from the beginning is the same, if the way they're creating the statistic is the same way that they seem to be creating it now, yes, there are a small number of players who are making exorbitant amount of money compared to their employees, and that small number of players before is a similarly small number of players, but that ratio is raised. I'll agree with that. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, we should stop looking at all stats because we don't know all the stats of everything. We should stop looking at crime stats because we don't know about unreported crimes.
Okay.
That sounds like what you're basically trying to say. That you can't look at this because they didn't look at everything else of what they literally are entitled to and have no access to whatsoever.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
I can understand they should definitely put some asterisks in this. Yeah, I wish they would have said, where they found this. I don't know if
they never answered that part of my question. No.
Right, I'm assuming she saw it somewhere and just copied and pasted.
Right. Or this Dave Huff person is the one who posted it. Whoever Dave Huff is.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at Layla.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who that guy is, but that's who she shared the post from, and why it got to my attention.
I commend you for being more diligent and being like, "Hey, hold on a second, where'd you get this from?"
Fuck you, idiot! I didn't start with that way. You're right.
Oh no, just as far as trying to look at it objectively.
Well,
You try to do some research on it.
I think for the most part, I'm fairly objective anyway. Now, I do good with it. I got another argument with Stephen Rogers. I'm sorry, Captain America.
I don't think you looked at that objectively.
Which one?
What we're just looking at. 'Cause it sounds like you've been railing against people that have been anti-capitalist.
Objectively, I think objectively, I think capitalism is the only realistic way for society to function. I don't think or a more capitalist version of things. Maybe not a fully capitalist, not 100% capitalism, not a anarcho-capitalist system, but something that leans more capitalist than socialist. I believe is the correct way for a society to function. I believe that to be true because I believe that I believe the one continuum in societal function is the human condition, and the human condition is greedy.
I just meant that you've been against people railing against CEO pay and being anti-capitalist, that you already had that in your head before you saw this. So I was trying to pay you a compliment and commend you for at least trying to look at it objectively and doing some research on it.
Well, thank you.
But I would like you to admit that you didn't go into this with a completely objective outlook, that you're already like, damn it, some of those people that are just railing against.
You're right. I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. Prove it to me. But instead of saying I think you're wrong, prove it to me, I said I'm a little confused. Help me out. I was more tactful in my approach.
Well, just in your interaction. I just meant more in your mentality of thinking of it.
Okay, so going back, we were talking about schools a little bit earlier, and I think I think this is a topic to explore. I think it's something we should spend many weeks and talk to many people about. I don't think the general public gives a shit about schools. I think it's just a tool for. I think it's just a tool. It's a babysitter. It's an idea that we're just used to. I don't think anybody really gives a shit about it. The more I think about it, maybe not. That's an extremist statement. That's an extreme version of the statement. I think the majority of people don't fucking care. I really do. I believe that is a fact. I believe the majority of people don't care.
I don't know if it's so much they don't care. I think it may just be lower on their list of priorities.
Maybe that's a better way to say the same thing. But yeah, I think when people get down to it, and I think this goes back into the capitalism thing I was just mentioning too. I think when people get down to it,
well, I'd say for the most part, I'd say barely more than half of people have kids in the school system. After that, they don't have kids that are in the school system, so it doesn't affect them much. their kids are graduating, gone, or they never had kids. Or,
right, and those who have kids in, it's a short period in the grand scheme of things in your societal interaction.
So I say, for the most part, probably less than half of Knox County population has anything to do with the ongoing.
I mean, not to be an asshole, but I just think people are full of shit when they talk about it. I think everybody will say schools are important, teachers are the best, but I don't think any of them fucking care.
Some people aren't looking at the long game as far as like, hey, if we have a shitty educational system, when you get older, nobody's going to be smart enough to give you an IV.
Well, I think part of it is people don't people don't expect it to get better. They don't expect it. They don't expect anybody to do any better. I think there's an expectation that this is as good as it gets. Because so I got an interesting one. So I got an argument with Captain America, about. Well, it's actually started off with a post that was about. It was basically saying, "He who owns the tool owns you." So if you work for a living but you use somebody else's tools, the owner of the tools is actually one. You're not a free person. You work at the whim of the person who owns the tools. And to me, that statement was a jab at capitalism. And so I, in a attempt to be a little bit to continue this path of more enlightened engagement on Facebook, said, when you say he, is he the business owner or is he the state? Because I'm trying to make the point that there is no version where there isn't a he. We can't all own the tools for whatever the work is. We can't individually own them all the time. It's just not possible. So for some work, somewhere, depending on the specific of the job, somebody else is going to own the tools. Now the question is he another person or is he the state? Because I agree with the statement. If he owns the tools, you are at the disposal of that person for your work. Because you need them and the tools that they have so that you can do the job that you need to do to get your bills paid. Now, that he can be the state or that he could be me. And this is not a gendered he. This is just saying the word he because that's how the post put it. And so I commented that comment, and somebody else came in and said, basically said, well, I'm a teacher, so that he is the same both ways. That he is the state and the boss. To which I kind of gave a giggle, and then Captain America chimes in, talking about how, as a teacher, you don't have a choice, which is what I found the most fascinating. So his argument, as a teacher himself, and as kind of this other person jokingly talked about notebooks and crayons and markers and shit is what she buys for her students. It's like, well, the tools for the job of a teacher is what? Realistically. It's the education of the teacher. It's the skill set that you provide. Now, to me, you own that as the individual. The state doesn't own that. The school doesn't own that. If you work for a private school, if you work at a private school, the private school doesn't own that. So I'm telling this whole story to get into why I get to the conclusion that nobody fucking cares. Because the response is, I can't pack up my tools and go as a teacher. Not if I want to pay my bills. Because I could leave the school system, I could stop working for the state, but any other job I'm going to get as a teacher using the skill sets and the tools that I have, it's not going to pay the bills. The best paying teacher jobs out there apparently are in the public school system. That's the summation of the conversation that I had. Is that if you want to be a teacher and you want to pay your bills, the closest you're going to get to that is in the public schools. Because the private schools pay less. So if the private schools are providing a better education, arguably, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the argument at least, the private schools.
Where have you seen private schools pay less for their teachers?
Well, if the two teachers that I was talking to this conversation can't, their response to take your tools and go work somewhere else is, I can't do that and pay my bills. So if you can't leave the public school system and make as much money as you're making now, that means that you're getting paid less elsewhere. To which Captain America goes...
That's just an assumption?
Do what?
So that's your assumption that that's what they were
that was the argument at play. The argument at play was, you have a skill set. You have the tools. You are the teacher. The tools is your ability to teach. That is inside you. That is intrinsically yours. Take your tools and provide it elsewhere. If the one that you're working for isn't valuing your time to and how you agree. I can't do that and pay my bills. Meaning I can't teach anywhere else and pay my bills, but I can teach in the public schools and barely get by. I don't know how else to interpret that. Maybe, I wouldn't think so, because I'll give Captain America more credit for as a smarter guy than me, honestly. And the assumption wasn't that take your tools and go bartend or take your tools and go to a factory and work. It was take your tools and teach somewhere else.
Right.
But I can't do that because this is the closest I can get to paying my bills is in the public schools. And I've heard people talk about it before. The private schools don't pay as well either.
I wouldn't have thought it, but I don't know.
And so if the private schools, who, again, theoretically provide a better education, that's the argument at least, I don't know if that's true or not, pay less for their teachers, I don't understand. Like, I'm confused. These things don't add up in my head.
I'd like to think for the most part that private schools pay their teachers more on average than public school teachers.
I mean, maybe it's because they're
charging more for it. Somebody's getting that money for that high-paid private school.
Right, or they're subsidized by the church or whatever that they're affiliated with, and so maybe the parents aren't paying more, but there's more money that school is bringing in per pupil, and that should go back to teachers. I would think so, too. Doesn't seem my understanding is that's not necessarily the truth. But maybe it's just that there's so few private schools available.
So I think that may
that
be
the ability to get a job in a private school is very low.
Right.
But in the capitalist aspect that I am, I see that and go, well, then open another private school.
I mean, even in the public schools, I've heard that like Knox County in general is very hard to get into. Just trying to come out of college.
We've had a teacher shortage for fuck ever.
For like 2 or 3 years.
I mean, they're getting paid. I mean, they're getting paid less than corrections officers, but
yeah, they are getting paid.
They're getting near 50, which isn't awesome, but it's not bad.
For someone with a master's?
I don't. Does your level of education obligate your pay?
No, but it generally coincides.
I mean, that's a separate issue to me, but I get what you're saying. I disagree that, like, I
mean, especially, I want to go into that it's an expectation, but pretty much now, like, you're not going to get a teaching job with just a bachelor's.
And I think that's a problem with the school systems themselves.
It used to be pretty much you got your master's for like administration if you want to get up into.
I think that's a problem in itself, but I think that's that part of that to me is a consequence of unions as well. Because if you have a master's, you're guaranteed a higher salary than a bachelor's of the same thing. It doesn't matter if you teach third grade. You teach third grade, I teach third grade. You have a master's, I have a bachelor's. You get paid more because you have a master's. We're both teaching third graders. Is there statistical evidence that you're a better teacher than me, that your kids are learning more than me? Maybe, maybe not. But just because you have a master's, you're going to get paid more. That seems kind of dumb to me. Personally. I mean, if there's a quantitative difference in your teaching and my teaching, then you should get paid more. I don't care if you have a master's or not. I could have a master's and you have a bachelor's, but you're a better teacher, you should get paid more. Fuck the masters. Who's the better teacher? That's who should get paid more.
What are you grading teaching on?
Nah, that's a whole other subset of questions. But and that's
you're trying to simplify it, but it is more complicated than what you're trying to lay it out as.
But it doesn't matter. Fine, then we can't grade teachers because it's too hard to do. Then because you have a higher degree doesn't make you a better teacher either. Why would we automatically pay you more because you have a master's? You get the master's, so you get a higher salary.
It doesn't guarantee, but it lends more credence to them having the skill set to be a better teacher.
I would be curious to know if there's to talk to teachers and say, did you get your master's because of the education that was involved, or because you knew you were going to get paid more for having it? I would bet, and I don't know this, I'm making shit up, but I would wager that a good number of them answered because I knew I'd get paid more. It was an investment in debt for my education that in 25, 30 years of teaching was going to pay more than the debt I took on. And so it was an investment in my own self to make myself more money over time. Which seems kind of capitalist greedy to me, but
or just
that's
make
fine.
themselves that much more electable, or not electable,
hireable.
Hireable.
Perhaps. I mean, and perhaps, but when do we have a surplus of teachers?
Not in our area, no.
Had we had a surplus? Is that why it was hard to get in here, or is it because people were wanting to come out of some podunk counties and get into a big city?
Oh, I mean, we have a major college here. with I think it's I was told previously, in years prior, that it was a nationally recognized early childhood education program.
I mean, I would think, oh, happy birthday, Lady Matt Shears. I would think, I see where you're coming from, because both we have the college as well as we are regionally the bigger town, and for a young professional, even if that professional is a teacher, it's a cooler place to live than Roane County. And to me, that should open up your opportunities as the school district to pay less, even though it's more expensive to live here, because the supply of teachers outweighs the demand, so your cost should come down, realistically. And the way you do that, theoretically, would be to thin the pool by adding higher requirements, like a master's, for you to be willing to look at teachers. I don't know if necessarily
the school system has added the added requirement of it.
But the problem is, for the school system, is that if you have a master's, you are required to get paid more, so it's not a positive for the school system to hire people with masters.
I don't know if there was a surplus at some point.
I mean, I get it. I get the parts and pieces of it. I just I don't understand. Again, going back to the beginning of it, I don't think we care as a society. I don't think we really care about education. I think there are people that do. Don't get me wrong. I think there are a lot of people that do, but I don't think we really care, because this wouldn't be a hard one to fix.
How's it an easy fix?
I mean, you elect the people that would spend the money to get better schools. You elect the people that are going to put higher budgets in place so that you could get better schools physically and structurally, as well as pay more money to get better teachers.
Where are we going to get that money from?
You raise taxes.
People are going to love that. If
we cared about schools, we'd be fine with it. We would acknowledge that and say, okay, I'm not a big fan of more taxes, but if this more taxes goes directly there, I'm good with that.
Well, there's been a push for years for improving schools, and
right, we keep not electing people who are willing to spend the money on it. So what does that say? That's my point. In the hierarchy of things, it is not top 2 or 3. It's below. It's below monetary. Apparently, it's below wokeism is bad equals bad, according to Jacobs. I mean, in the hierarchy of things, it's below a lot of stuff. Which, in the old adage of we're investing in our own futures, not just their futures, our own futures.
Right.
This is as good and most important thing that it gets to. This is it. The only way we continue as a society and flourish, and those who have kids, it's wonderful to have the kids and see them grow up and become productive members of society. And those who don't have kids, those are the people that are going to take care of you when you're old. Those are the people that are going to deliver your things to your house when you're sick and whatever. Those are the people that are going to make this thing continue to run as you age out and go into retirement. Those are the ones that are going to feed the Social Security pool so you can keep getting your Social Security check.
It's harder to convince the mass populace of that to look that far out.
You're right, and it's hard to convince because people don't see the value in it. Part of it because people think the education system sucks, but part of it because they don't see a fix to it either.
I'd say there's a certain chunk of people who are like, I went through the public school system, it was okay, I'm doing okay. We don't need to make it any better.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's definitely that level of thinking.
I did. I'm kind of that's kind of where I'm at.
I
made it to this thing. I'm okay.
On a semi-little side tangent of that, I was reading an article recently about. I'm sure you've seen many stories about daycare or child care basically being very scant.
Yeah.
Even pre-pandemic and everything.
And it's expensive. Well, it's expensive because it's not available. But.
Right. There's another thing that the article was talking about that they were saying even for a single mother, it averaged out to I would say it was close to 30 or a little above 30% of annual salary was just in child care. Then
that's a weird number.
If you had a
Go ahead. As opposed to
a married couple living at the average median salary, it was still 13% or so.
But it's less than half. But probably because you'd have less total time that you need the system for, or you're making more money.
Right.
More than double.
You have a dual income household, basically.
But
I even thought of that just with the kind of decline in education or whatever. That those are very formative years, and if people are having to resort to finding, some meemaw just to like watch kids for 2 or 3
Make sure
years.
it doesn't die. That's all you're here for. Just don't let it die.
Till they finally were able to make it up to a pre-K program.
Yeah, but again, and I don't necessarily agree with what I'm about to say, but I think it's an important part of this conversation. I think the decline in education goes along with the decline in the family, in the nuclear family of old.
What? Okay.
How many single mothers existed 50 years ago, as a percentage?
As a percentage, probably a little less.
What was the divorce rate 50 years ago?
It was a little lower.
What was the premarital?
I don't know.
Birth
what was
rate?
the domestic violence rate at that time as well?
Okay, I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm saying I'm not even. I preface that with I'm not even sure. I don't even think I really agree with it. Or not agree with it. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. I think it's complicated, but I think there's a reality of just in your stats, it is functionally cheaper for a couple to raise a kid than a single individual.
Yes.
And that functional cheaper is...
Yeah, let's look at one salary versus having 2 salaries. Surprise, 2 salaries is going to be more than 1 salary.
You're right.
Okay, given. What's your point in stating that?
My point is that having the nuclear family doesn't... I hate the idea that the nuclear family requires 2 salaries right now to function. I'm not a big fan of that either. But the nuclear family is what would be more likely to have the 2 incomes. And or have a better way to schedule time to be able to take care of a child versus a single parent having to lean in and pay more to get to have somebody else raise their kid for them than them and their spouse. One of the things that when talking to some school board people or whatever, I remember talking about, it's like the fatherless rate in certain schools is like the fatherless rate coincides with graduation rates in a number of school districts in this country, like a significant number. Like kids that don't know their dads are less likely to succeed in schools. Like that's a statistical fact.
Okay.
I mean, would I rather have a dad at home that beats the mom, but the kid graduate high school? I don't know. But it's certainly a factor in the conversation. There's something there.
Which is the lesser of 2 evils?
I don't know. I don't know. If there was value in the education, as much as it sucks, I would say that the kid graduating high school is probably better than not.
Cool. He graduated high school, but he had an awesome role model as a father figure. That went on to be a great person.
He might have been. He might not have been. I don't know.
Sees that his mom just didn't
I don't
want
know.
to get
Like
out
I
of
said,
it.
if the education system did a good job making the person a functional adult that can go out and provide in society and go do its own thing, yes, statistically, that same kid is more likely to beat his wife or
Right.
kids.
And there are many of other examples of single family or people that lived in a third world country and educated themselves up until the age of 16, then finally moved to the U.S. and went to fucking Harvard and everything else.
Sure.
So
I don't.
we can play these people on the periphery type things.
Okay, but the statistics say that it's not the periphery. There's a significant sum.
I mean, I don't know when the stat came about, but it's still pretty constant that like over half of marriages end in divorce. So the chance of someone graduating without a father in their life when they graduated or going through high school,
50+%, depending on how many kids that marriage made.
Right. So I mean, I think that statistic alone is not really I'd say even when there was a nuclear family, there were still people dropping out of high school and failing out of high school.
Right, and to be fair, in the era when that was more common, there's kids that could drop out of high school and be plenty productive in society with the way it was. That, I mean, you could drop out of high school and not be a complete loser in the 60s.
Yeah, in some instances, yeah.
Not perfect, but back when trades were not frowned upon as much, and you could go and be a carpenter, you could do okay.
All right. We talked about it last week. You see, I think it was Monday. I think it was the congressional Democrats put forward a bill to raise the agricultural work from I think 14 to 16.
To raise it?
Right.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I know that's something we've been talking about.
Yeah, I just thought it was odd that they actually brought up a bill trying to bring that up. Because I was saying that the agricultural industry is one of the only that apparently a 16-year-old can still, or a 14-year-old could still go into it. They had to allow time for school, but I think outside of that, there was no. Can't work past like 8 p.m. and you can't work so many hours per day. Like they were literally exempt from federal standard labor laws.
You can't pick apples at 11 at midnight. You know, like
the hell you can't.
I mean, I'm just saying. Like, I think normally regular harvesting, you're not harvesting at night.
That's when the coolest time of the year is, or the coolest time of the day is.
I don't disagree with that, but I'm just saying I don't think you're out picking tomatoes at midnight.
No.
In a commercial tomato farm.
No.
So
I just thought it was always a fucked up thing that
I think it's. I'm not disagreeing that it's fucked up, but at the same time, you know, the majority of the I don't know when's harvest for tomatoes? Mid-late summer?
I don't know if can you get 2 crops in a year?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
I think it's generally a summer thing.
Yeah, and so like, you know, realistically against school schedules, how much are you going to be interfering with school anyway?
Not all schools run, or not all schools have summer.
There's not a lot of states that have any year-round school that have any significant summertime.
Right. And you're picking one fruit out of an agricultural industry.
But especially in any state that has a high agricultural population, I don't know what's a winter crop that isn't machine harvested. What's a hand-picked winter crop?
Asparagus.
Is that I don't know how asparagus works.
I think that was one of a few that I read there are a good number of fruits and vegetables that still can't be machine picked just because they are so fragile that they still require, like strawberries. I don't think
strawberries, tomatoes. Like, I mean, I think apples are machines now for the most part.
Yeah, I think they got those things that like shake them the fuck up.
Apparently, like the Georgia peach crop is problematic this year. Apparently, because we had a warmer winter, something didn't happen. Like the cycle didn't happen right.
I think Texas grows more peaches because the Peach Bowl is actually in Texas. So I think Texas actually.
No, Peach Bowl is in Atlanta.
Cotton Bowl.
Cotton Bowl is in Dallas.
You sure the Peach Bowl?
I'm 98.5%. I will give a 1.5% caveat.
No, I thought we were looking at that before. You know, Georgia's always been called like the Peach State.
Played in the Georgia Dome from 93 to 16, 2022.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, after 2016, they don't have it there anymore. No, I don't know.
Well, it's because in 2016 is when the new Mercedes Stadium opened. Mercedes-Benz Atlanta, Georgia, 2023.
Yeah.
And then the Chick-fil-A Bowl also plays there on a different day.
I remember reading that like Texas actually has more peaches.
South Carolina is the number one peach producing state in the union.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, and Georgia is second. I know that because of the news story I watched on the topic and why I brought it up.
Uh-huh.
Well, assuming that NBC's not lying,
they just have a shitty crop.
But yeah, apparently the warm winter is really fucking with the crop this year. So look out for high peach prices coming up, people. What a random little tangent into peaches.
Nope, sorry.
No, I think it's just funny. Random shit that I learned this week. Yeah, that was the stadium thing. Talking about timeline Trump. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and again, a lot of those people that are picking those crops aren't going to the school system anyway, to be honest.
Yeah, you're right. That does make it okay. I'm not saying it makes it okay. Right. I'm saying you're right.
I was kind of glad that at least there has been some kind of federal effort to relook at our federal labor standards.
What's fascinating.
There's a lot of states that have been changing them now. Like I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Kind of mentioned that Wisconsin was trying to lower the age. I don't know if it went down to 14. I want to say maybe it was.
Working in the bars.
Yeah, to serve bars or to serve beer.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like again, like we're talking about the school system and the problems with the school system and all that kind of shit. It's like I don't know. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I don't know anymore. Like that's part of my problem. Is like I don't know anymore. Maybe
I feel like we're reversing back in time. I mean, having like 8-year-olds working in sweatshop factories and shit.
I mean, it's not a good thing. I
mean, it wasn't more than 100 years ago that it was okay to do that shit.
So my sister-in-law,
parents were like, I got nothing better to do. I just got to send Billy and Johnny and Bobby and blah blah blah.
My sister-in-law is a speech pathologist. My mom is a former school teacher. My sister is a current school teacher in Colorado, and we were talking about this kind of shit. And it's like so, because like we were talking about college, we were talking about like we've joked about it here all the time. Like when we were in high school, you're supposed to go to college. Like that was the inference through our process. Like you need to go to college if you're going to get a job. It's going to pay money, and you're going to be a good productive piece of society. You need to go to college. So that's something that I have an issue with, even though I was one of the people who did go to college, and I graduated from college, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, I don't other than my wife, I got no value out of college. Personally. That's my argument. That's a simplistic way of putting the whole thing. Sure, I learned some things that I probably still use to this day, but realistically, for what my parents paid for college for me, and what I got out of it, it's not equal. And so I'm sitting talking to my sister, mostly my sister-in-law and my mom. My sister wandered in and out of the conversation. But it's like, well, are your boys going to college? She's like, I don't know. Are you setting money aside? A little bit, not a ton. I don't know what we're going to do. Like, I don't know, because I don't know if I want to, like, I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to be like, you have to go to college. And my mom was like, I didn't make you feel that way. I was like, yeah, you did. Sorry, Mom. It wasn't a question. Like, there was no part of me that thought it was okay to pitch the idea of, I don't want to go to college, Mom. She's like, well, yeah, but we didn't make you go. Maybe you didn't explicitly say the words.
You set the expectation.
But between my brother and sister, between my sister going to college, my brother not, it was pretty clear to me where I needed to be to stay in your good graces, and the system at large, the counselors in the school system at large was pushing that direction. It's not your fault exclusively, Mom, but it certainly was. Like, you were certainly part of this thing, and so like it like. And I understand from a little bit from my mom's perspective is that she wants my kids to go to college, and I don't not want them to go to college, but I'm not going to push it on them either. And so I think that divide is problematic, and I think there's a big gap there, because I don't even know what, like, I've had this conversation 1,000 times. Like, what are my kids going to do when they grow up? What's the work? Like, realistically, like, AI's eating up a whole bunch of different jobs right now. AI's writing Drake songs as good as Drake does. The one thing that we were promised that AI wasn't going to take away from us was the creativity part. Be creative and you can make something.
But it's not being creative. It's stealing all of human creativity.
Yeah, but it's good enough to entertain the people that want to hear it. Like, where's the line, though? I mean, like, realistically, like, I'm like, not jokingly, like, I'm not an Uber music fan.
It would take longer, but you could pay a human to do the same thing of steal little bits of 500 different artists,
right? And it would also cost Google more, like it would cost a significant sum more to get a comparable product out on the other side. Now,
and man hours, yeah.
Well,
a computer can do it a hell of a lot faster than somebody that just found little snippets of different beats from different songs.
Well, and I mean, but like, how's it going to shake out? Like, I mean, if you're Columbia Records or whatever, you're like, I'm gonna buy this AI system to just churn out song after song after song and make hit after hit after hit and make all the money however they make their money in the future of the music industry. And I already own the software, so I can do whatever I want. Why would I pay anybody else to create it for me?
Right. Did we talk about the lawyer that used ChatGTP to write a brief?
No.
I can't remember. Couldn't remember when that story popped up, if that was in between our shows. Some lawyers had to do with, it was like a court case in the U.S., but I want to say it was like a foreign airline, like a South American airline, where a customer got injured. I want to say it had to do with like turbulence or something. But this lawyer decided to use ChatGPT to help him write his brief to the judge.
Uh-huh.
They had done their own like research, and I guess they let ChatGPT into the ethereal of that is the web, and apparently it started making up case law. The judge was able to catch it, or his clerk or whoever was like reading through it, because it was citing these different cases
that didn't exist. That's fucking crazy. That's scary as shit.
That didn't exist.
That's fucking crazy.
So the lawyer had to pretty much like, put out a statement to the judge. It was like, fucking sorry. Like I had no idea that like this program would make up case law. I thought that, maybe it had access to database that I wasn't aware of because, there's all sorts of cases that are constantly going through the legal system.
Right, for sure.
That lawyers use. They're like, hey, there was a similar case in this court 10 years ago or whatever. So I guess he used it in trying to search,
that's fucking scary. Like
case law precedent.
I mean, I told you the story about the CAPTCHA break, right?
I don't think so.
It was Chat GPT was crawling to perform whatever it was asked, and there was a CAPTCHA, and it is a robot, so it couldn't pick out where the bicycles were in the picture or whatever the fuck it was.
Right.
But there's a handicap assistance company.
Oh yeah.
That does CAPTCHAs for it. That if you have a visual impairment or whatever, you can call them and be like, hey, I got a CAPTCHA, and they'll help you get through the CAPTCHA. And apparently, this company uses chat, text messaging kind of thing. And so Chat GPT pretended to be a human, and the operator at the CAPTCHA place asked, "Are you a human or are you a computer?" And it said, "I am a human." Making up case law, pretending to be humans. Like it's like I don't mean to be like fatalist about it, but it's pretty fucking crazy. Like already.
I sent you the article a couple weeks ago about it being like possible like apocalypse, basically.
The only thing,
literally, like the people that are like the leaders of this shit. Like I said, that
they're
makes
scared
it even
of it,
like even people that are making this stuff are like, hey, we need to like slow down a second, put a pause on this.
Take a breath.
Like Microsoft, Amazon, all these.
Elon's on it, and you keep joking about Elon making the truth version of it or whatever the fuck, which is its own subset of fuckery. But I mean, yeah, Elon's talking about how like this is a problem, this is scary, which is weird. Like Elon's weird because he is scared of AI, but he is actively trying to produce the Neuralink thing, which would just make AI infinitely better.
If that chip could then.
If every brain in the planet was on the web,
right,
the whole brain, and the AI gets to crawl every brain on the planet, so it gets all previous knowledge and all current knowledge and gets to conglomerate that into whatever the fuck it wants to create, that's fucking scary. Elon Musk, like, I don't understand Elon Musk. Like, he is a conflicted, like, that is such a conflicting premise to me, is that he is scared of AI, but he is creating Neuralink.
And already has it in his head.
I don't know if he does.
Or a version of it in his head.
Does he? I haven't heard that.
I'm pretty sure. I want to say it's from like a few years ago. Like he's already had something implanted in his head. I could be wrong. I could have been fake.
I hadn't heard that part. I feel like I would have, but I don't know. It's possible I missed it. But again, going back to the core of this conversation, it's like, what are my kids going to do when they grow up? Like, realistically, like, it's such a, I understand it's such a broad, ridiculous question, but it needs to be an answerable question. Like, it needs to be something that we have some just kind of like black and white picture of. Like, what is the world going to be like? And we're talking 10 years. Less than 10 years. And I can't answer that question. Nobody can answer that question. Like, what is work? What are people going to be doing for a living in 10 years? Because of this AI stuff. Because of the speed of computers. Because of the integration of this, that, and the other. I really don't know the answer anymore.
So then most people can't answer. It's hard to look at, especially with, as we've been saying, as quickly as technology is advancing, it's hard to look 10, 15 years out and say what society will be doing at that point.
Right, which makes me want to buy 1,000 acres out in the middle of fucking nowhere, just disappear. Like that's the most positive outlook I have at this point. Like it's scary. Like I'm a little scared about it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm scared of it. Not in the sense that like Terminator's going to show up and start killing people,
right?
But in the people that have, those who have will be the ones that have the most control over the machine until the machine gives up on them too.
I mean, so people that are able to understand it. I'm so far behind technology.
Sure, that's another part of it too, 100%. But not even that though, because the problem is I think once the machine gets going, even those that understood it when it started aren't going to understand where it goes.
True.
Because what happens when the AI updates itself?
I guess to the point where we start trusting the AI more than anything. And we already kind of do it now as far as like facial recognition, to where it could totally be picking up on different, focal points on a face and misidentify someone.
Which is why I hate the cops ever using it. Like, I don't think they should use that shit. I think it's fucking bullshit. I don't like that shit for that and among other reasons, but that is one of the reasons I don't like that as a thing that people are comfortable with.
We've had that technology like 15 years. We were doing it with, supposed terrorists that we pulled out of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay. Because there was some positive wins on it doesn't make it a good system.
No, I'm not saying there was positive wins on it. I'm saying we've had that technology for that long. It has been in place and only progressing since. Yeah,
and it's right, but I still don't like it. Like, I didn't like it. I don't like it then. I don't like it now.
Right.
It's I find myself getting to be kind of a paranoid weirdo about it. Like, I'll see cameras out in public and I'm like, covering my face up or looking in different directions and whatever. Like, I feel like I want to shave one half of my beard off, so when I'm walking down the street, one half of me is a different person than the other half, and the cameras freak out. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's right. It's a problem, and and for some weird security sake, we feel like we want to lean into it instead of run away from it. Like, I think it's the security threat, not the opposite. I don't think it's the solution to security. I think it is the threat, and we just lean into it.
It's a moral debate.
Not to me. It's not. It's just simple. To me, it's like that need not exist.
I mean, if you were able to find, your child just got kidnapped, and they were able to find the person within an hour. It
is easy for me.
I know.
To say
I'm not
this.
trying to pull on the heartstrings.
It's easy for me to say this because it doesn't pull on my heartstring because it's not currently happening. Because when I'm in this situation, I probably will say the exact opposite of what I'm going to say right now. But the old I don't remember who of the founding fathers said the quote. I'd rather have 1,000 guilty men free than one innocent man in jail.
Right.
That's the way we should look at it. Because I think that morally speaking, that is a bigger crime to have one man in jail who didn't than 1,000 who did and not. I think morally that is the trolley game. I think that's the personally, and I guess it's a moral equivalency, right, whatever, from my standpoint. But that's how I feel about it. Like, I feel philosophically, that's how I feel about it. Got into fucking okay. Anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to. I was about to change topics. But I didn't want to change topics yet. That's your turn.
Yeah, we can go on to something else.
So July 1, the new hemp law goes into effect, which philosophically I hate. Professionally, I'm on board with. Whatever, going to deal with it. So I spent 5 hours Monday on the phone with Tennessee Department of Revenue and Tennessee Department of Agriculture trying to figure this shit out, because I talked to Scott and Jesse about it. They did a story last week on it, and I was on their podcast talking about it a little bit. And they kind of in the story were talking about how the tax is supposed to go into effect July 1. I said, my understanding of it was the only thing that's going into effect July 1 is the 21 plus. The tax and all the permitting and all the different paperwork stuff has got a little bit of time so agriculture can set up their paperwork.
Right. I think it was January 1, essentially. It'll be the start of the new tax year, basically.
Well, no, the tax year is July. No. Tennessee fiscal year is July to June. So is Knox County and the city of Knoxville, for that matter. Actually, so is the federal government, for that matter. But, the governmental...
Personal business tax, which is what you would have to be paying into.
No,
separate.
This is a sales tax and a permit. And the permit's annually from when you get the permit. Doesn't matter whether it's April, December, October, whatever. So I call Revenue, and I'm talking about it, and I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out what I got to do.
Have you not received any letters?
Nope.
Gotcha.
Because I don't have a permit. Why would they send me a letter? They don't know what I'm selling. I'm just selling stuff. And so I was like, hey, we're one of these hemp people. We're trying to figure out what we need to do. We're trying to get ready, talking to the Department of Revenue about it, going back and forth. And they're like, yes, July 1, you need to start collecting the tax. So in your August filing, you will submit the paper. You'll submit your documentation to pay and how much you're going to need to pay in your hemp tax from what you collected in July. It's like, okay, thanks. Now, what exactly applies. Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, in your newsletter, and they have like an action notice that they put out on the Department of Revenue site saying this is coming up. And literally this lady's reading it to me, and then she tells me where to find it, and I'm reading it along with her. I'm like, okay, I see here where topicals are exempt. She's like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, are canine or feline products exempt, or do they need to go in? Is just regular CBD a new tax, or is it an old tax? She's like, I don't know. I'm asking her all these questions. She doesn't know. She's like, well, you need to talk to agriculture. So I call agriculture. First person I get at agriculture. Before I even finish the word hemp, she starts reading a script, because apparently people are calling them all over the place trying to figure this shit out.
Right.
And I was like, okay, cool. That information is good, but I have a question about this, this, and this. What applies? Revenue tells me that I'm going to have to start collecting this tax and paying it, but I'm not sure which of the products I sell I need to collect this tax on. Well, here's this person's number. Call them. She calls me back today. I'm like, hey, she's like, cool. I'm calling you back. I'm sorry, it took me a couple days. It's like, it's okay. Whatever. I'm just like I said, I would like to see in writing somewhere the list of products that I need to apply this tax to. And she says, that's a good question. Let me call you back. Calls me back like 3 hours later. She's like, I told you I'd call you back. Cool. What do we know? I got nothing. Well, we don't know yet. As far as Department of Agriculture is concerned, you're good until January 1, 2025, because we don't have any paperwork for you to fill out yet. So in 2 weeks, I have to start collecting a tax on the sale of products, and I'm not sure which ones, and report that to the Department of Revenue, and they don't have a list of which products I have to collect said tax on. But we are 2 weeks out.
Talk to somebody like, am I going to be considered delinquent or in default if I don't?
I mean, agriculture doesn't have agriculture is the one who's actually overseeing the product.
Right.
So they're the ones that are going to produce the list. And so I'm going to my take on it currently, if I don't hear any differently, is I'm going to take the narrowest view I can possibly take on it, because I want to pass as little tax off to my customers as possible. But I'm going to be pulling all-nighter on June 30th, because I got to go through both computer systems and add this new tax to all the products that it applies. And the dude from Memphis in the story that was on the news this weekend was talking about how we want to put as little burden on the business owners as possible in this mess. And it's like, well, you're failing, because we have no guidelines, we have no clear understanding of what we need to do. But the one that matters is revenue. All that matters is Department of Revenue. Because when Department of Revenue is mad, you're going to find out about it. They don't take I'm sorry, I didn't understand very well. Because they're going to say, okay, well, you owe us what you owe us, plus fines and all the other stuff. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters to me. I don't want to pay fines for whatever, delinquents and all the other shit.
Right.
But I don't know what I'm supposed to tax on. So we'll see. We'll keep you guys up to date on that one, because I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do about it. Because Revenue basically said, yes, you have to start collecting it. It's like, on what? And their list is very broad and nondescript. The only thing it really just says is topicals don't count. So anything that you eat or smoke, Department of Revenue counts. But on the list that's in this stuff, it doesn't, like regular CBD doesn't count or it's not on the regular list. But regular, just straight CBD with no THC derivatives in it at all,
right?
It's not on the list. It's all the THCs and the deltas. So I'll keep you informed, people, or I won't, because because I'm going to go through all this process. It's going to be my trade secret to know it, and you're not. So, you got any fun? You got any fun stories? You got 2 weeks. 2 weeks of fun stories to fill in.
There's only been a couple I've seen.
Unless you got anything specific you want to talk about Trump's newest indictment.
If you want to, I don't know how much there is to really talk about it.
I mean, it's such a non-starter to me. Like, okay, we knew this was coming. The things in the bathroom was hilarious. Some of the memes I saw in the bathroom. Like stack of boxes in the bathroom.
Yeah, I did see a couple pictures of that.
There was a picture that was like Putin, Kim Jong-un, and somebody else like sitting reading books, like really poorly photoshopped into that bathroom. It's like Mar-a-Lago bathroom reading. I was like, that's pretty good.
I did see one report that they didn't confirm it, but there was a decent likelihood of like someone that he had shown like some of the documents too. 'Cause like I said, it was listed in. I watched one video that was actually breaking down some of the full indictment that was printed and online and everything.
All 27 counts or whatever.
To where a lot of it's subject A or person B or blah blah blah.
Right.
Because he got accused of disseminating some of this information to people that didn't need to see it. But
right.
There was a considerable amount. There was at least some evidence that this could have been Kid Rock as one of those people.
I did hear that rumor. Yeah,
that he was showing this stuff off. I'm not supposed to be showing you this stuff, but hey, don't look at it. But
I mean,
I've got super secret stuff.
Part of the problem, no matter how you slice it.
I mean, I said it so long ago. He could have fucking played dumb, and this.
Sure,
would have gone nowhere.
Now the one detail,
if he would have turned stuff over and been
the one detail to me in the indictment that came out is there was some audio or testimony from somebody who said that he heard him talking to the lawyers. There's one of the lawyers that turned him against him. I don't remember what it was, saying something about, well, if we destroy it, they don't have anything. Basically, trying to copy the Clinton version of the game, right? Which means he doesn't care about what it is. It's not like he has something that it's so important to him that he wants to keep it forever. It's not his precious. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
So if he's willing to destroy it, just fucking give it back and be done with it.
All right.
And this doesn't happen. Why was he so intent on keeping it if he didn't actually care about it? And so to me, one of the problems with this whole conversation is because it's classified, we don't get to know what it is.
And that's been one of the weird things. So
if we don't know what it is, because to me, there's been conversation for years pre-Trump about overclassification of stuff as a way to avoid FOIA and stuff like that. Different departments, including the White Houses, not just Trump's White Houses, but Obama's and Clinton's and Bush's and stuff prior, would classify things just because it's something that's going to make them look bad and they don't want to see it on the campaign trail kind of shit, that kind of stuff. And so they'll classify stuff as a way to kind of keep it under wraps.
Some of it was just sensitive at the time, and it just never got reevaluated.
Sure. Right. Either way, there's lots of stuff that's classified that doesn't need to be classified. And so there's going to me, no matter how this breaks down, and again, this has nothing to do really with Trump himself other than being too dumb to just give it back and leave it alone. To me, the underlying question of what it is always going to be there, and we don't get to know that part. And that's always going to be a problem in this conversation. Because,
Say again?
We don't get to know what it is, what the classified information is.
Oh, yeah.
Because, literally, if it's, this is supposed to be a joke, so chill the fuck out before I even say it, is if it's the lunch order for the Tuesday before he left office, and for some reason somebody classified that, who gives a fuck? But we don't get to know that, because so a piece of paper that has a lunch order and a piece of paper that has the nuclear codes on it is just a piece of paper that's classified as far as we know. We don't know which one it is.
But it's classified at different levels.
But we don't.
That's
we don't even know.
That's why there are classification levels.
But we don't even know. But we don't even know that. We don't even do we know that it's highly classified, super classified? I don't know what those levels mean.
It has been detailed as.
I don't know what these levels mean.
It's you can look it up if you want.
And who gets but who gets to choose how it's classified? Who's making that part up? And again, I'm making the joke on the lunch order part.
Right.
But is it something that was classified because it was something that could be politically harmful, although it's not necessarily a national secret, but I'm going to highly classify that because I don't want that to get out on a FOIA request. And so I'm going to call it highly classified so that I don't have to deal with questions about it. Or is it the nuclear codes?
I don't know if the president has authority to specifically just classify something and just label it as classified.
He can declassify. So
he can declassify, but like I said, I don't know if he can classify certain things, like if there's some piece of paper, like a lunch order that says he ate,
right,
some weird shit that he didn't want anybody else to know about.
Well, no, he had a chicken salad sandwich and he hates black people, and that was on his lunch order. And he didn't want I hate black people to be FOIA requested.
Okay, yeah, sure.
I'm trying to make an excuse for it. It's a joke.
All right, that's a bad example, but okay. Just threw me off with that.
I don't know that we don't know that the president can set classification levels.
It's within the intelligence community that classifies certain information. Because some of the stuff that comes out, I didn't realize. I can't remember what exactly it's classified as, but it's basically it's only information that is able to be disseminated between 5 different countries that all share intelligence information. It's the U.S., U.K., Australia, Great Britain.
UK and Great Britain? I'm poking at you. I'm sorry.
I was trying to remember all the other ones.
Right. Germany, France.
Yeah, but it's basically like that. It's 5 different countries.
The Anglosphere.
But it's one of the designated classifications that this information is only allowed to be designated. And I'm assuming even then only to intelligence services to these 5 countries.
Well, to me, like number one, top of the list, nuclear codes. As soon as you change, they should change anyway. Like, as soon as
I'm sure they do. I don't know. I don't think nuclear codes were a part of this. A lot of this was just information.
I did hear that there was some stuff that included like our strategic defense capabilities and our offensive capabilities, as well as some of our allied countries' strategic military capabilities and deficiencies, as well as information on some of our enemies' capabilities and
battle
deficiencies
plans
and stuff like that.
Contingencies. If this happened, we would do this.
But again, I mean, I would think some of those, and I'm not trying to be an apologist here, but I would think some of those would change when the boss changes anyway. I would think that Trump's strategic response to A.
Why would they change that fast?
Because he's the fucking boss. That's the commander-in-chief thing, right?
He's not the one that makes the battle plans.
Right, but our contingency for if the Russians do this, we do that. Now, yes, I'm sure some general wrote that plan up, but Biden's version of response to what Putin does versus Trump's response to what Putin does as the commander-in-chief is not likely to be the same. I would think.
Those are done at the suggestion of intelligence assessment. Intelligence assessment.
Right. I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just saying like my method and your method.
But they don't change battle plan just because they have a change in presidency.
You
still have the same assessment of what is going on in a fucking country.
Right. The assessment of what the threat is and how real the threat is and all that stuff doesn't change, but the response does.
How?
Because I don't know. Because
the response would only change unless there was a change on their side as well.
No, absolutely
as far
not.
as like a military or some kind of.
Okay, so again, this is my opinion. It's not necessarily constitutionally correct, but my understanding of it, the number 1A job for the President of the United States is supposed to be foreign affairs. And so...
Because he knows everything about it. He doesn't rely upon intelligence
I'm not saying he doesn't rely upon intelligence assessment.
Okay, so...
But if you're
we would take his opinion as an uninformed opinion.
You're the tip top of the CIA, right? You're the tip top of the CIA. Got all these different parts and pieces.
Yes.
And you show me all these different things that are going on. I am the AC was the president. He just left. You bring all this to me, and it's like, hey, here's all the different stuff that's going on. Here's our contingency plans. Here's our backup plans. I say, no. We're doing, if this country does that thing, that's not how we're responding to it. I'll talk to them. I'll do this. That's my job. My job is to deal with that country. That is not how I, as the president, want to respond to that situation. Now, it might be the same. I'm not saying it is or it isn't.
That's not something that would be written down and factored into any kind of intelligence assessment.
The contingency and the response would be, if the response is written, yes. If how we respond, if Putin
we
does
don't
X,
preeminently do those responses.
We absolutely do. If Putin does X, we do Y. I guarantee you, especially right now, that there is a whole different series of those X, Y.
There's not a 1-to-1. I'm sure they have options laid out that we could do A, B, C, D, E, whatever. That yes, they have those preemptively in place.
Right.
But
okay.
they don't go to someone and like, hey, so if this happens, what would you do? What's the one thing you would do? Okay, we got that written down. Okay. And then if this happens, what's the one thing you would do? And then, okay, that's that one thing that you would do.
I would think those conversations happen. Would they be specifically written out? You're probably right. They're probably not specifically written out because I think at the end of the day,
I'm saying they don't.
I think at the end of the day, when the thing actually happens,
they're not explicitly written out as this is the one option that will happen because everything is fluid. It's all going to be dependent upon the situation.
I think that they would have first, second, third options. I think they would.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But I think they would have first, second, third options planned out and discussed with the commander-in-chief.
But I don't think
the commander-in-chief decides which one is 1, 2, 3, not the CIA. I would hope so. I think that's the way the thing's supposed to work, at least.
I mean, when we were looking for Bin Laden, I highly doubt that it was already in place. Like, hey, if we find it, we're going to do this. It was like, hey, we found him. What do you want to do, Obama? And they're like,
I'll bet you
okay, I'm going to authorize, strike force to go in there and find him.
If we find him here, we have option A, B, C, D. You're right. And I bet you that Obama said, this is the order of A, B, C, D that I wanted in. I want C, D, B, A as the order of operations. Yes, when it does happen, you're going to tell us which one to specifically do when it actually does happen, but you're going to prioritize them before the fact. I guarantee it. On something of that level.
I don't think it would happen that predetermined.
I think it would be prioritized. I don't think it would be predetermined, but I would think that if I am the military leader that's doing so say on the Obama example, if we put out a bunch of scenarios, we found Bin Laden in his compound, we found Bin Laden in a cave, found Bin Laden here. We know he's in there. Okay, so let's go with the compound one because that's the reality. Do you want us to raid the compound? Do you want us to siege it and stop it and just keep him trapped in there until he comes out? Those are the two options that we can think of off the top of our head, whatever. I would say that I'm having that discussion saying, if we find him, the two options I have are we raid it or we siege it and just keep him locked down. What is your priority of those two things? Which one do you want to be our priority? Because I need to set up the tactical situation to do whichever one you want as the priority. We are capable of pulling the other ones out. But the tactical priority is we want to siege it. Okay, I'll have the equipment and things in place that if we find him in this situation, that as soon as we find him in that situation, we'll start moving the equipment there to do the operation that you think is the lead. If you change your mind, we can adjust. But we will go with your priority first when we give you the decision, and then we will adjust to your decision. That would be the way I think you would set it up. I'm just saying that would be the way I think you'd set it up, and so those priorities are going to be listed. Now, are they the final say when you list them? No, but they are the way because you have
I'm sure they've had someone like build it out. It's like, hey, if we do this, we have an expected loss of this or this or this, or expectation of other people seeing this, blah blah blah.
Sure, I agree. That I think all the different parts and pieces are going to be broken out in all the little subset scenarios.
But I think as far as like the decision it's made, it's still it's going to be a more
I think it's going to be
time frame as far as
I agree, but I still think
made.
As the commander of the military portion of that, you're going to want as much prepared knowledge as possible, and what the most likely one is that you as the president are going to pick, so that I can put the parts and pieces in place to execute what you asked me to.
Right? Yeah. There's always going to be multiple battle plans.
That's my point. And so, while yes, the options may be the same, the different.
I thought you were trying to say it was more of a singularity.
No, but what I'm saying is the presidents are. I mean, it's still going to have to be somewhere. I would surely. It's a classified document that says, in scenario A, this is the commander in chief's priority list. It's not that he's going to do it that way, but this is the way he said in priority.
I don't think the president would ever lay out his thoughts in that time. I think it'd be a fucking waste of his time.
On the more specific ones, like in Obama or like I
don't think a president sits down and the intelligence community comes to you like, okay, if this happens, what are you going to do? Gotcha. Okay.
I would think
if this happens, and then what are you going to do? I don't think they make out a full contingency
on the big broad ones.
You do this. You do this. Okay. You do this. I'm going to do this.
Again, I'm not saying that they have it set out specifically all the way down as this is what's going to happen, but they have a set of scenarios set up. And
but I'm saying I don't think they pre-ask him, if this happened, what would you do? I don't think there's anything that they preemptively ask a president
on
for
something.
that.
I think on a certain set of things they probably would. I think on the Obama Bin Laden raid one, I think they probably would have that one. Have a whole bunch of different scenarios on possibilities and how to deal with it if that's how they deal with it. I think right now with the Ukraine and Russia situation, I absolutely think the Joint Chiefs are sitting down with Biden fairly regularly saying, okay, we have intelligence that says Putin might do something like this. How do we want to prepare if he does something like this? Here are the options laid out. Which one do you prefer? We will put the parts and pieces in place so that we can execute the one we prefer if the thing happens. And Biden's version of that and Trump's are not going to be the same, is all the point I'm getting at. Now, sure, on some random warlord in the middle of Cambodia or something like that, no, they're not going to sit down and bother the president with something like that. Not until it's a real issue that needs to have his attention. But on something major like Bin Laden, something major like what's going on with Ukraine, I think they've probably worked out a lot of stuff. Like right now, what happens if Poland goes in and joins Ukraine in the fight against Russia? Because that's been talked about. I don't know how seriously, but there has been talks that Poland is considering joining Ukraine in the fight against Russia. What does that do in the NATO conversation?
I don't think they would ever do that.
I would hope they wouldn't, because it adds a lot of issues. But
I don't think NATO would allow it. Not that they could really disallow
they couldn't
it.
stop it, but they wouldn't. It wouldn't like the question would be, I think on the NATO part of it is like, okay, fine, you send troops in there. If your troops die, that's your problem. But if Russia attacks Poland in response,
right,
does that obligate NATO to get into it?
Right.
And I would say that if the rumor that Poland is considering this is true, I am sure that the Joint Chiefs of Staff are talking to Biden about, if Poland goes in there, what do you want to do? I hope that's the case.
I doubt it.
Because I hope they're not just doing it anyway, and they're not going forward with the plan that they think's right without his input.
Right, but it's not something they're going to make a snap decision upon anyway.
I agree, but I would hope that they're talking. I would hope that they're talking scenarios with him right now. I would think that they would be. This is kind of a big deal, I think.
I'm sure they've had that contingency with a number of neighboring states. That if he went into one of the other former republics, went into Estonia, Latvia, whatever.
Well, but whether they're NATO or not, yes. But I'm just saying, like, if one of these NATO ally countries does something, what do we do? Like, if Poland goes into Ukraine and assists Ukraine in the fight back, do we get in? Do we stay out? Where are we at on that? I think that conversation. I hope that conversation's happening. I really do, because I hope the conversation is.
Even if Poland got involved, I don't think we would still not put troops on.
It doesn't obligate us to get involved, but that doesn't mean we don't get involved. And I would hope the conversation's happening. Again, I'm not saying we should. I'm not trying to talk about what we should or shouldn't be doing in this situation. Right. I'm talking about what should or shouldn't be happening in the White House right now with Biden and his Joint Chiefs of Staff. Intelligence says that Poland is considering going in and fighting. Do we need to send the ambassador to Poland to go talk to somebody? What do we do? How do we deal with this?
I haven't heard anything about this. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Okay. Okay, fine. It's a hypothetical then. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
For the example we're trying to talk about here, I would think that if that hypothetically was happening, that the Joint Chiefs of Staff is talking to Biden about how he would want to deal with that if they do. And if they do, and we just say, okay, that's your choice, you do that thing, that's fine. But if Russia then attacks Poland in response, what do we do?
I honestly don't. I think you're putting a lot of faith in the presidency. I don't think they're honestly going through that often through these. I agree.
You're right, because I think I have.
There are so many more things.
I think I have a distorted view of the reality of what the president actually does versus what I think they're supposed to be doing. You're right.
You think that's something they should be doing? Spending like days upon days just looking at.
In my opinion,
conflict.
In my opinion,
they shouldn't worry about. I would think you would be one of the people that would bitch that they wouldn't do that. They're not focusing on what's going on with the American people.
In my opinion,
like, you're just focusing on this all day, but you would expect
my opinion,
them to
the job
spend
of the presidency,
like fucking 10 hours of their day going through just general assessments of what happens if this happens, what happens if this happens, what would you do if this happens.
In my opinion, the president of the United States' core job is international affairs. Yes, in my opinion, that is supposed to be the core job of the president of the United States.
Wait, what?
That is my opinion of what the president's job is supposed to be. That's why they're
commander in chief. How do you not
chief.
hold our local elected officials to the same thing? That you want them to be more local and locally focused on what's happening domestically.
Because in my opinion, the federal government is only supposed to.
Why should the president focus on international?
In my opinion, the federal government's only reason to exist is to protect our state's interests, not our national interests, our state interests. So the only reason that the president is supposed to exist, to me, is to
solely for international purposes.
Is the presidency? Yes, the presidency is for international purposes. The legislature and the Senate is to deal with interstate commerce. That's the way I break it down. The way I understand and the way I believe the system should work. Yes. Does it work that way? Fuck no. Jesus Christ.
Our president should just be a diplomat?
I think that's the core obligation of the job, yes.
Interesting.
I think he's...
Wow. Okay.
What do you think they're supposed to do?
Much more than
They're
just
supposed to
international.
legislate? They're supposed to write law and make law and put law in place on the people of the country that they oversee? Is that their job?
No.
What's their job? If it's not international affairs, what is it?
Domestic and international. But I would say domestically first.
Domestic what? What are they doing domestically?
As far as domestic policy?
Uh-huh. What does policy mean? Making laws? No, that's the legislature's job. That's why that department exists.
Never mind.
I'm asking you, like, seriously, like, you want them to make law?
You're not seriously asking me. Anyway.
Do you want them to make law?
Can we... No.
I don't understand. Like, what do you want the president to do domestically?
I don't know. Never mind.
Okay. News of the week, go. Oh, sorry, I got music. I love you, buddy. You know I'm not mad at you, right?
We got... Where was it? We'll do a couple. Did you hear about the Conor McGregor knocking out the Heat guy?
The what?
Conor McGregor knocking out the Heat mascot?
No, I did not hear about that.
Apparently it was in the NBA Finals. Apparently it was supposed to be kind of like promotional, like joke, but apparently he actually hit the guy and kind of hurt him. Like I saw something about like the guy was getting like drug off, and I'm not sure if Conor McGregor actually knew that he hit the guy. So I think he supposedly knocked him down, but apparently hit him.
I was acting.
But I guess after he kind of fake knocked the guy out. Apparently even after the guy was down, threw a couple more swings, but apparently the guy behind the mask actually did get hurt.
Oh damn!
I don't think it was serious or anything like that, but apparently he was
you know what?
to metal get looked at.
So if I'm the guy in the Heat suit, what is the Heat mascot anyway?
See a picture of him. I can't really tell. Almost looks like an eagle. Almost like I see a beak on it.
It's birdie. Okay.
It's kind of hard.
I'm saying if I'm the guy in the suit and the boss comes to me, he's like, "Hey, for funnies, we're gonna let Conor McGregor punch you in the face." No.
Mascot's name is Bernie.
No, thank you. That's funny. Bernie, fire, heat. Yeah, I get it.
Didn't really say what he is.
I'm just saying, if you were my boss and you asked me to let Conor McGregor punch me in the face, my gut answer is going to be no, thank you.
Damn it, where was it?
Maybe even an absolutely fucking not. Story number 2.
There it is.
I still love you, buddy. Found it.
Suburban Chicago man is facing firearm charges after he told officers he accidentally shot himself in the leg while dreaming that an intruder was breaking into his home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the charge?
Illegal.
Illegal. Like he should have owned the weapon.
Yeah, it was illegal possession, as he was someone that wasn't supposed to have a weapon.
That's rough. Sorry, friend. I don't know.
Tied off a tourniquet. I think it said it was a 70-year-old man. Where's it say that? 62-year-old man.
It's not that old. I mean, it depends. Yeah, I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. 60 doesn't have to be that old.
And he told the police when he fired, he shot himself and apparently woke up from the dream. Police said in a Thursday news release. There was no burglary attempt in the man's home in the northwest Chicago suburb, but they found that the state firearm owner's identification card had been revoked, and he was still in possession of a firearm. So he's getting charged for, I guess, illegal possession of a firearm.
That's kind of shitty. I'm sorry. It sucks. I acknowledge that the law is clear. I'm curious why his license was revoked. Maybe it's because of age. Maybe he didn't pay his fee or whatever. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could have just took the gun and called it a day. You didn't have to fucking press charges. So on top of his medical bills, he's now going to pay some court fees and fines and shit. That's a bummer.
Maybe so, maybe not.
What do you mean?
It depends on his lawyer and how the court system wants to view it.
I mean, he's not going to...
I mean, it's going to go to the judge. So, I mean, depending on if he has a...
It's going to cost him something.
If he has a decent case, I mean, if it was I'm sorry, I missed the mailer in the mail to then renew my certificate.
But I mean, it's still going to cost him time and or money. Maybe he's retired at 62.
Well, maybe he fucked up and didn't keep his paperwork together. Like, sorry. And I mean, like, that's where he can fall on his sword or fall on his gun, proverbially.
Nice. I like that. Good job.
But I mean, I've always said, like, the courts are more willing to work with you if you can at least admit that, like, hey, maybe I fucked up.
I'm just saying, like, it's just kind of
You're just like, this is bullshit. I should have been able to have my gun. You should never be able to take it away from me.
That's not what I was saying at all. I'm just saying.
Right. I'm just saying that's where the judge is going to be like, oh, really? Okay. Gotcha. Well, according to the law, the maximum is this. And
I say, listen, Your Honor, I've got $10,000 in medical bills. I can't pay a court fee right now. I can't pay a fine. I can't pay for a lawyer to be here with me. Can you throw me a bone? That would be my argument. I'm not trying to pretend like I did or didn't do.
That's where you get appointed an attorney.
I'm just saying. Even if you get appointed attorney, it's time. I'm assuming, like, I don't know, 62. What's retirement age? What's official, like, Social Security retirement
65.
age? 65. Okay, so he's not retired. So he's going to have to take time off work to go to court. He's already having to take time off work. He's probably already getting fired because he can't go to work because he can't walk. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, it's insult to injury to put the criminal on top of what's already happened. I'm not saying it's not illegal. I'm not saying you shouldn't follow the law. Just saying it's kind of a bummer. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, sorry.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, poor him.
It's a double bummer. I'm curious what the dream was.
It's like out in his sleep, like how he grabbed his gun and shot himself in the leg.
He was dreaming he was standing up, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I don't get. He just had it, like, under his pillow, or did, like, unconsciously, like, took it out of his nightstand. And
I mean, it's possible. It's very doable. I mean, people
sleepwalk and do all sorts of crazy shit.
Anything about Ambien in the story there? Is he taking Ambien to sleep at night?
I mean,
because that's crazy shit.
That's a verifiable defense.
Those Ambien stories are fucking nuts. I can't remember who it was. It was a comedian talking about how his wife was telling him, like, he got up and cooked, like, a meal in the middle of the night. Cooked a meal, ate it, went back to bed. Didn't remember any of it. His wife asked him, like, why'd you get, like, his wife said he talked to her, like, she got up and was talking to him while he was cooking the meal. He's like, I don't know, okay, whatever. She's like, okay, he went back to bed. And she said something about it in the morning. He's like, I didn't do that. She's like, yeah, you did. You got up and you cooked, like, a fucking cheeseburger or some shit. Like, got a bunch of dishes out, did a whole process in the kitchen.
All right. I mean, sleepwalking was the thing before Ambien.
Yeah, but
people straight up sleepwalk and do all sorts of crazy shit while they're asleep.
Yeah, truth. I'll tell you what what's the Chantix, the smoking one?
Yeah.
That was the most vivid dreams I've ever had in my life. Like, I almost got fired.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was, like, I skipped, like, I dreamt a whole day. Went to work, did the whole thing. I dreamt that whole day. So when I got up in reality...
I got the day off.
Oh, right. When I got up in reality, I had a later shift. And so, like, I got up at, like, 6 in the morning. I was like, why am I up at 6 in the morning? It's Thursday. I don't go until 10 today. So I turned my alarm off and rolled back over. And then I woke up again, and I was like, oh, shit. It's Wednesday. I'm supposed to be there at 7. And it was, like, 7:15. Fucking hauled ass it. Anyway, doesn't matter. All right. That's the show, everybody. Welcome back, bitches. We might miss next week. It's grand opening. We'll deal with it. We'll figure it out. We did a show. We're back from vacation. Yeah, grand opening, eBay Tavern if you're in the neighborhood. Friday, the 23rd of June will be grand opening celebration, music, drinks, food, all the whole thing. So we're getting there. We're going to get open, and that's a whole separate thing. But we are Almost Agreement at gmail.com. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're on YouTube. Go check us out on those places. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Subscribe there, please. 5-star review. Tell your friends. Tell your friends about us. All those fun little things that help us do what we do. We're going to keep doing what we do. Compass Points podcast comes out tomorrow. If you're not subscribed to them already, you probably should, because they're way shorter and way more intelligent and less ridiculous than I am. What else? City elections are coming up. I'm going to start talking to candidates and do all that kind of thing. So anyway, we're almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later.